Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of Mythos Busters, where today we're sticking to the plan.
Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah, see? I can do it on the fly, right? That was all for like 5 seconds of prep. All I did was look over at my table where I have my new Roland Stick to the Plan deck down, and yeah, there you go.
That
works. I'm Sean. Joining me tonight is Ian. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
How are you?
I am not bad overall. A little tired, which can happen when you have young children, a young child, I should say. I'd probably be more tired if I had plural children, but
yeah. We were actually just discussing this with a friend who's expecting, and it's that the idea that the responsibility inherent to a dependent is exponential.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like the work of two kids is the same as like quantifying the work of one kid, moving on, doubling it. No, it divides your mind, it divides your energy. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
So here tonight, though not here at the moment, he'll be joining in a second, is Nick. So he will be here at some point, I'm sure. And missing tonight is Scott. Schedules didn't line up. I think he's got some family in town, so we'll catch him on the next one. So tonight we've got That's a word we're using tonight. Wow,
I like it.
Starting strong.
Werv.
Eloquency. Oh, eloquency. That's a word too. God, we're just gonna stop. Episode 34 is gonna be an awesome show. We've got some awesome news to cover. We're going to do our community highlights. And then tonight we're talking about the Phantom of Truth and Pallid Mask Mythos packs.
Mm-hmm.
And rounding it out with a couple voicemails that we're going to discuss and some tentacle time. So yeah, it's going to be a jam-packed episode. Strap in. Here we go.
So spoiler alert if you haven't played those quests for later.
Yes.
We'll give you another spoiler alert later.
Maybe. We intend to. We'll do our best. So I suppose let's start out. Ian, what you been playing lately?
I've actually gotten a few campaigns going, but I guess the most notable, because it's the one I've been playing most recently, is actually everyone's favorite, Skids. I have a solo Skids campaign going through Carcosa.
I heard a scoff come in. Nick's here. Hi, Nick. You're recording, right? Yes, I'm recording, Sean.
Okay.
All right, keep going, Ian. Nick will drop in.
All right, I'm recording now.
Okay. So I know Skids has gotten a bad rap on this podcast, but I'm having a ton of fun with him, and I think because I hadn't played him a while solo. I think before that through Dunwich I was playing him in the famous Skids Daisy two-handed campaign, but playing him solo, the card pool that we have now, he's a lot better solo than he once was, and he's done really well. I've kind of breezed through. Oh no, let me take that back. I did not breeze through at all. I have completed some scenarios quickly, but a lot of them have been like on the edge of a cliff, one sanity. I think the past 2 or 3 scenarios I've all completed with one sanity, one horror away from going insane. So there's been a lot of kind of edge of your seat puckering time adventures, but it's been a lot of fun. And Unspeakable Oath, we've talked about how that can be a rough one solo. I beat that one with Skids with like 6 doom to spare. He was just lightning through that scenario. And he had the straitjacket on for maybe like 2/3 of the scenario, and I didn't even care because I have Streetwise, so any enemies that popped out I evaded, and yeah, just all those actions just managed to get in and out. So
I'm due to give Skids another roll, because I honestly don't think I have legitimately tried Skids since the core set environment. So even though I love to rag on him, the only thing I like to rag on him now is the one thing that I'm still sure is an Achilles heel, is that 2 willpower. I'm sure everything else is fine.
Yeah. One of the most entertaining parts is it wasn't my plan to get the Tattered Cloak in Echoes of the Past, but stuff he was just getting, sometimes when the encounter deck turns against you. Usually Echoes of the Past solo is a breeze, but I think almost every card I drew was an enemy. So I had to spend all this time trying to basically whack-a-mole. And long story short, the Oath Speaker popped out and I killed him at the last minute and got the cloak. But that's a fun one because it reduces his sanity, but it also boosts his willpower. So it's like, do I want better chance on the test, but I'm also closer to going insane? So I've had that on for a couple of the scenarios I mentioned where I was one away from going insane.
I think I've only gotten the cloak in one campaign.
Yeah.
Does the cloak have a health or a sanity? It has a health, right?
It has a health, yes. It doesn't help.
Oh, okay. So
way.
It's not even a thing where when you're about to take sanity, where you're about to take horror, you could put it on that and take the pressure off your horror or your sanity threshold.
Nope. It's that's the only campaign I've gotten the cloak in. So
I've thought multiple times about starting a Carcosa campaign with Skids, but just the thought of doing Curtain Call just scares me with him. Just because we did that one-time 3-player and I got locked down so hard and was totally reliant on the other investigators. So now I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that solo.
Yeah, that's the hardest one for him because he doesn't have Streetwise yet. Because once he gets Streetwise, everything else I can pretty much deal with. Like Last King, he got 4 out of 5 interviewed, which is really good. But Curtain Call, I'm trying to remember. I think I got through. There's part of the deck is I'm using Sleight of Hand very heavily, 2 copies. And so I think in that initial scenario, I was using that with a flashlight to get the investigate test done pretty much. And then later on, I have the upgraded 45 automatic, which I'm loving, and using the Sleight of Hand with that. And that's been pretty much taken care of combat. So yeah, give Skid solo. I think Skids is better solo than maybe some of the higher player counts where he might get bogged down compared to some of the investigators. But yeah.
Fair enough. Nick, you got any notable plays of late you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I'm here to report back in on my Min's Temporary Plan deck build.
You did your homework!
I did! Last minute, I played 3 scenarios, or 3 games of it a couple nights ago. I posted the deck list in our Deck Tech channel on Discord, but basically the whole idea, again, is to build a Min deck that doesn't use any assets. And even, her signature is an asset. So I haven't even been playing that. I've just been pitching it for skill tests. Because I really want to get that feel of there are no permanent things in her board state. And I played standalone, so I did 19 experience, and I played Phantom of Truth 3 times, because I love that scenario, and it seemed like a good one to really test both mobility and enemy management. And it went pretty well once I was actually doing it correctly, because I've only played Phantom 1 time before this, and I realized, my first playthrough, she failed, but I made a lot of mistakes on the way. As far as not playing the scenario properly, so then I had to reset and go again. But anyway, it is surprising how fast of a start a Seeker without any assets can get going. Suddenly, turn 1, I have 5 clues. It's stuff like that. It's just bizarre. I'm running 2 copies of Deciphered Reality in her deck, so that's 10 experience for that. But it worked especially well in Phantom of Truth, because we'll talk about it more specifically later, but I basically spent my first 2 turns running around the map and opening up locations and avoiding the one that I knew had a really high shroud. And then my last action on my second turn, just Deciphering Reality and pulling 7, 8, 9 clues in one action. It was amazing.
Oh, nice.
It was really cool. The only time...
Don't mind me, y'all, just Deciphering Reality
over
here.
Right? Just sucking up clues from all over the map, pretty much clearing the whole map, other than that one location. The only time that I really ran into issues were when I had more than one enemy engaged with me. When that happened, that's because I have a lot of tools in there to mitigate enemies, get, free evades and stuff like that, but I don't... The problem is, with that scenario specifically, and the version that I was running, I had to deal with one enemy over and over again. The main enemy, obviously, and I don't want to get too heavy into spoilers yet, but... so I was saving all my tools for that, And so then that meant when the Byakis were coming after me, I was like, do I use these tools now? Or do I, focus on the big guy and then just hope the Chaos Bag goes in favor, in my favor, which it rarely did. But, so I failed the first two. I think she went insane, every time. And then the third try, I succeeded, and actually pretty handily, like with a lot of time to spare, which was nice. So, my actual, like, if...
So would you call the deck viable at this point?
Standalone, yes. Campaign, I don't think so. I think a level 0 version of this deck would be too flimsy, and I don't think there's enough upgrade options currently to make late campaign play viable. But I think if you're looking at 19 to 29 experience, it's going to be a strong deck that has obvious weak points, but it's really fun to play because while everyone else is spending their first 2 turns setting up, you're just like, investigate, move, you're already playing the game while everyone else is getting a board state. So it's oddly freeing, and it's one that I expect to revisit again as the card pool grows and as we get new scenarios and stuff like that.
I do really like that idea of Deciphered Reality, just playing like a pinball seeker. who shortcut and Pathfinder and just going everywhere, and then like bang, bang, 9 clues in a go. That's a hell of a thing.
Now, do you think if you added in, let's say, just 2 assets, that it would be like fully viable? Say if you had higher ed and hyper awareness for the agility boost?
Potentially. I could definitely... Yeah, that's the thing right now is I think it can be argued that the assets are the most valuable cards. Like if you were to look at just straight card types in the game, assets are probably considered the most valuable because they sit in play. And the fact that I'm artificially making the game harder for myself by limiting those, I mean, you could add in one asset and it would make this deck a lot more consistent. Sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that if people wanted to take the general idea and maybe throw in an ally or 2 or something like that, then they'd be able to really open up that like campaign play for this deck. But part of the charm and part of the fun, I'm not going to lie, it's really fun to do this. Part of the fun, it just comes from not having assets. So, I would highly encourage anyone who's interested to try that out before they, experiment throwing in a hyper awareness or whatever.
What does Crypt Chill do to you if you can't discard an asset?
2 damage. But that one...
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that in Phantom of Truth? Because I never pulled it in 3 games.
No, I think that's not until...
Pallid Mask. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you bring up about when you don't have to play any assets, then how it kind of accelerates things.
Oh, yeah.
The Skids
like
play
gaining an extra couple turns.
Right? Yeah. It is similar because I have, quite a few assets in Skids, but if I have Sleight of Hand in my opening hand, then I can pretty much just get down to business and not put any of the kind of weapons out or even flashlight. Only thing I need to worry about is getting my Leo out or whatnot. So it just, I'm able to get a faster start than a lot of the other investigators I've played, and it actually makes a pretty big difference that is hard to see when you're just taking the more traditional prepare approach. And I think it really shows how you need to be very considerate of how much time you're going to spend preparing before you get started with any deck, really.
Well, and Phantom of Truth is an interesting one, especially to test this deck with, because that one, your act will pop even if you're not finding clues, because once you hit that 3 doom threshold, the act is going to advance. So no matter what, I knew that I had that time limit to get those clues. But if I were setting up my board state, that would pretty much go from 3 turns to 2 turns, because you'd imagine that you'd need at least a turn to get your 2 assets and whatever in play, But the fact that I could start from the word go and just start opening up locations, and if I started with shortcuts in hand, then I could open up the locations and decipher reality that much quicker. Like, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. But yeah. I don't know how this one would work in a scenario like I thought about taking it up against Essex County Express just to see if it could work, but I didn't want to, so.
That's one reason why I wasn't on the last cast, so I didn't get to defend my beloved agility. But I think agility is an underrated stat for that reason in solo specifically. I think in solo, actually, agility can be pretty useful because it gives you that option, especially if you're a rogue with Streetwise, of like, I'm just going to get going, not put a weapon down, even if I don't have sleight of hand. Because if an enemy pops out, I have the ability to just easily evade it, and then I can save myself some time early on.
The only thing...
You can always rest assured that you can create some space if you need it.
Right.
Yep.
The only thing that I ran into with evading, especially when I had like two Byakis and the Organist on me, was like, I can evade all these things, but they're all gonna, like, if I spend all my actions evading, then they're all just gonna be there next turn, and then do I spend them evading again? Like, it worked, with this deck specifically, it worked until I had, again, 2 or more enemies on me.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with evasion, is you kind of need the extra actions, which is why rogues are good at it, because not only do they have high agility, but extra actions so that they could, evade and then move or do something else. Where, yeah, if you have the 3 actions and multiple enemies, then it just is can be a killer for a lot of investigators.
Can confirm.
How much experience would you spend... Sorry, I'm eating chocolate while we're doing this. How much experience would you spend on a card that is fast and automatically evades a non-elite enemy? Like if it were an event.
That's a good question.
How much would you pay resource or experience?
Experience. Because it wouldn't be a 0, I can tell you that.
Resource? Oh, experience? Well, what does it cost resource-wise?
Free. Or 1.
Free? Oh, shit.
To automatically evade.
That's like in the 3 to 4 region, I think, for a non-elite.
Yeah, I would think so, too. That just literally just hit me right now, because it's like, man, if we had an event that was fast, automatically evade a non-elite enemy, that would have made that deck so much better.
I mean, we kind of do. What was it? Think on your feet and bait and switch kind of get there. Wait,
no, those both require
legit evade,
and so is think on your feet, I believe.
Now, think on your feet just swaps your location.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the closest is Stray Cat, which is an asset, obviously.
Right.
But that you have to discard, and then there's Catburger. No, Catburger just disengages; it doesn't evade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest drawback to Stray Cat is it takes up your ally slot.
Right.
It's a really cool effect, and it's a really well-costed little ally, but I don't know. Anyway, so then I guess for my part, the only one I'm going to mention is Ian and I started up a remote play campaign for Carcosa. I'm rocking Jim, because I haven't tried Jim out since the last cycle. And Jim, okay, so already, so this is right before Black Stars Rise released. I was like, all right, Jim's probably just going to be better in Carcosa, right? Because we have more skulls. Defiance is going to be better because you just have skulls and one other bad stuff token.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, this kind of like chaos token manipulation deck is probably going to be better. And then, guys, Black Stars Rise released, and Saint Hubert's Key came out.
Yes, it did.
And holy shit, that's a card. So anyway, yeah, that campaign's actually going pretty well. We got through Echoes? Or did we just get through the Carcosa box?
Yeah, just the first 2 scenarios.
And Ian played Yorick, who was doing Yorick things.
Yep. Juggling knives, as you do.
But yeah, it's, oh god, which one did we just rush? Was it Curtain Call?
It was Curtain Call where we were farming all the XP. I think, what did we end up with? Was it?
I'm pretty sure we ended up at like a 9 experience.
Yeah, I think it was 9.
Curtain Call.
Yeah.
We got all the locations. We got the cultist enemy.
Bury them
got
deep.
The emissary. And then a Bury Them Deep and a Delve Too Deep.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. We didn't fire off the Delve Too Deep. We had the Delve. But even I had to admit that was a huge risk. It was literally the last turn.
Yeah.
The last agenda was about to advance. So, yeah. Anyway, it was a good go. And Jim is fun.
Oh, yeah.
He's gotten good toys since the last time I played him. So, I'm very positive on Jim.
Yeah,
Alright,
and I just wanted to prop that the remote play experience way of playing itself, which is basically me and Sean just on a Discord call together. We I think we mentioned on this podcast before, but in case people haven't heard this before, but just basically each of us had the game set up and had a kind of a mini or whatever to represent the other player, just keeping track of how much clues they had, and it was a lot of fun. I much preferred it to any digital way of playing. I mean, obviously it takes more time to do that than just setting up Octagon or Tabletop Simulator or whatever, but it's whenever I
the time, I feel like it's totally worth it.
Whenever I can play with physical cards. Yeah.
Nope, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying the same thing you are, pretty much. That whenever I can play with physical cards, then I prefer it.
Yes. Yeah, and I feel like that's actually a decent discussion topic for a future episode. Kind of different ways to make the game your own. So maybe we'll save in-depth discussion for another time. But yeah, this game plays phenomenally in that. We just keep calling it remote play, where everyone's kind of maintaining their own tabletop. I've done it before with like 3 different players. It just works. So if you've got the space, give it a try. All right, so Nick, what's going on in the community?
Oh yes, so the community thing that I wanted to highlight for this episode is a custom scenario called The Festival, and I will prop the link in our chat here real quick for the Arkham Central page for it. The Festival was created by Matthew Heity, and this one is... Did I actually download this episode or this yet or not? I'm obviously very well prepared. Pulling it up right now. This one is one of the highest voted scenarios on Arkham Central, for what that's worth. Obviously, people who play the scenarios or review them can go on and vote on them on that website. And this one is one of the ones that has the highest score, so I thought that it'd be pretty cool to highlight that. And now I am opening up the file so I can get an idea for it and remind myself where we're at.
Yeah, man, looking at the comments on Arkham Central, this thing is well received, I would say.
Okay, so this scenario... Oh, that's right. This one takes place... it's a holiday scenario, as you might be able to guess from The Festival. It takes place during Yuletide, and it has encounter sets and stuff like that. I love the encounter set symbol for this one because it's literally like mistletoe. Yep, yeah. It's great. Yeah.
Ian, you're going to have to break out your Santa custom investigator.
Yeah, it sounds like a good fit.
I apologize for not having the time to actually look this over. I put it in here expecting to be able to find that time to actually research the scenario a bit more. But no, the fact that it is highest rated is that's something to keep in mind. So I definitely think that people should take a look at this. The art that this person procured is pretty good. And there's a number of very interesting enemies. I don't want to go too in depth for spoiler reasons, but definitely check it out, and I promise I will be better prepared for next time.
Just be careful of that swarm of elves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're nasty.
I don't see a Krampus, right. Casey. I will say that.
Yes. Add the Krampus token to the chaos for the remainder of the campaign. He just bombs in for the rest of the campaign.
It's just the elder thing with a beard on it.
All right, so Ian, we've got... Oh boy, do we have some news.
We do.
Let's strap in. Take us through it.
All right, so we got 3 main news articles. I'll cover the 2 kind of novella ones first. So the first is that this actually got spoiled a while back by someone who received the Roland cards instead of the Jenny cards in their Jenny book, but we got the official release now so that everyone can enjoy the actual Roland novella and his special cards. So this is The Dirge of Reason, the newest of this kind of Arkham novella series, obviously featuring Roland's adventures, and I won't talk too much about the story because I know some people just like going in all the way fresh, but I started reading it. I'm about, like 7 chapters in or so, and I really like it. This might be, I mean, I'm not done yet, obviously, but this might be my favorite one yet, actually. It's pretty good. It's kind of your classic detective, obviously with Arkham weirdness going on, but detective type story. As far
I like
as
the idea of fleshing out Roland's character a little bit, because I feel like we get an idea from his investigator card back of his predilections, but not a whole lot about his personality. So is he an interesting character in the book?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think that's part of the reason why I was looking forward to this 1/10, because Jenny, I kind of had a really good sense of who Jenny was already before even reading the book, and Norman not as much, just because I'm not as familiar with him, but you kind of get a sense of his story. But Roland he's just like the epitome of the stereotypical straight-laced detective character. But in reading this, yeah, his personality really gets fleshed out, that he seems more like an actual person in character. So I think that'll add some flavor to my future campaigns with him.
Well, I think that we could all agree that from day one, Roland has really felt like the protagonist of Arkham Horror, right? Yeah?
Well, he's...
No?
Well, I know you're partially saying that in jest, maybe.
I'm 70% joking.
But I think there is something to that in the sense that he is kind of the suggested place where you start, and he's a good place where I suggest a lot of people start, and he is kind of just like the prototypical Arkham investigator in some ways.
I love how he's the one where you're just so tempted to start there, but he is the absolute worst lead investigator to run through the core campaign.
I don't know. I think he's a little better than Skids, but
I'm just saying, if you burn the house down, he ends up in a really rough spot.
I suppose, yeah, if you're playing with just the core set card pool, then yeah, it would be particularly rough if you don't have those sanity, modifiers from later sets.
Yeah,
yep.
He does not like the fires. So his replacement signature, instead of his special 38, is Mysteries Remain. Did you want to read this one, Nick, as the Roland aficionado?
Oh, sure. Mysteries Remain is a zero-cost event. It has a combat, an intellect, and a wild skill icons. Roland Banks deck only. Replacement. It is fast. Play only during your turn. Either place one clue from the token bank on your location, or discover one clue at your location. Remove Mysteries Remain from the game. And it is insight traded. I'm a little upset that it isn't tactic traded, so we couldn't use it with stick to the plan, but
yeah.
But this is an amazing... Is this the only player card? This is the only player card that actually straight up adds a clue to the game, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
To my knowledge, yeah.
That is so cool. I love it.
I will admit that when I first saw this card, I completely just skipped over or blanked on from the token bank card. So I'm like, I have to put one of my clues on location. I'm like, I know that helps with Inquiring Mind, but that kind of sucks. And then once I reread it and saw from the token bank, I was like, oh, that is amazing.
Yeah, that is phenomenal.
Do you guys think that maybe this shouldn't have been a parenthetical, that it should have just been place one clue from the token bank? Because if you take out the parentheses, then it means something else entirely.
Yeah.
Well, I think all the other... I could be wrong.
Or would it be place one of your...
That's what I was just going to say. I think all the other cards specify it has to be a clue you control.
All right, rescinded. So it's good, right, though?
Oh, yeah.
I've liked it.
Zero, fast. Oh, yeah. Love it.
Because as much as I like the 38, there are other weapons that you can find room for.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no effect like this. This is a solid card.
Well, and this frees up Roland a little bit. Not that you had to do this, but the fact that so much of Roland's power lies in clues at his location, and that is the same with the 38. Now, if you take the 38 out and you put this in instead, that frees you up from that kind of archetype. So William Mallison and Inquiring Mind, while they're really good, they're not... that it opens you up to other possibilities as far as what sort of strategy you want to go with for your deck. I personally always go with the Inquiring Mind and Mallison combo because the 38 and Roland himself like clues on the location. But I might, be a little more open to ditching those and, if I had this to supplement that. Or you could just run both. Why not just run both?
I'm running both. The word replacement might as well not even exist. The key word should be addition.
I've heard a lot of people, I've actually heard most people say that the medallion for Jenny is really, really good, and it nets them so many additional experience. But the one time that I actually... Really? Yeah, I was just going to say, but the one campaign that I was running with Jenny where I had that instead of her 45s, it just felt like I never had the resources, like I never was set up to do that. And so I don't know if I'm playing it wrong. It could be the fact that my Jenny was set up to literally spend her resources to get through tests without actually, worrying too much. So maybe I had to adjust my build a little bit to really exploit that. But I wasn't a big fan of the medallion itself.
I
ran it through the core set campaign, but I feel like maybe that was the mistake, because the longer your campaign, the more effective that card is.
Plus the core set campaign, especially like Midnight Mass and Devour, are just like shoo you along, you can't because a part of the thing with the medallion is a lot of times I played it through Dunwich. You really, those scenarios where you can take your time, say like the museum,
Essex County,
the extracurricular activity, and you can kind of
I laughed.
Thanks, Sean.
It wouldn't be an episode of Mythos Busters if we didn't leave Nick hanging.
At least once. But the ones you can stall and just kind of put those, it did really well. I think I was getting like the equivalent of like 6 extra XP over the first 3 scenarios or whatever. The problem with the medallion isn't the medallion itself, it's the weakness you get with it, which can just completely tank you, which it did for me on Blood on the Altar and Undimensioned. It was just like a killer. Not even so much being able to kill the thing, but the fact it spawns so far away, you have to stop whatever you're doing and go deal with it.
And it doesn't hunt!
Right.
Why does that
just sits there?
Stupid thing not hunt?
Yeah, it's brutal.
Just camps down and goes, no, you shall not. you shall not at all.
But I think that's where Roland has the advantage here, because let's take a look at his weakness compared to Cover Up. Sean, do you want to read The Dirge of Reason?
The Dirge of Reason is weakness, treachery, madness traded. Roland Banks deck only, replacement, or addition if you prefer. Revelation, place 2 of your clues on your location. If you cannot, place all of your clues on your location, take a horror, and shuffle the Dirge of Reason back into your deck. You like that, Roland? I much prefer this weakness to Cover Up.
Same.
Yes, I agree.
Not necessarily just because it's gentler, just because I think it's more interesting.
It's more interesting, and it's not one that if you don't take care of cover up on one scenario, it's gonna mess you up for another at least 1 or 2 more scenarios. It's gonna influence your card choice when you're upgrading to how can I get around that trauma, and that's assuming that you're not also getting trauma from the scenarios themselves. So,
yeah, and Cover Up is taxing like 3 resources from you, and this is 2 clues. If you think about you're having to put on your location and potentially having to get them back, it's still not as bad as Cover Up. And Cover Up has the problem of it could potentially pop up, say at the end of a scenario, and there's no way to do it, whereas the Dirge of Reason is not going to do that to you. Like, maybe it hits you at the end for the final horror and drives you insane, but I think on balance, it's I'd much rather have this than Cover Up.
Yeah, I feel that way on any of the task weaknesses where it's so time sensitive. If you pull it turn 1 or turn 2, you're probably fine. And you probably don't even have to worry about it a whole lot, because Jenny's going to find her way to Izzy. Akachi's going to have the charges to spend. Roland's going to get clues. But if you pull that sucker on, when you're on the home stretch, God, it's so rough. So yeah, I think in general, if there's an alternative to a task weakness, I'll probably take it.
Yeah, so on balance, I think I'd rather, I definitely, this is one investigator where I'd consider running both, but if I was going to choose, I'd definitely take the Mysteries Remain and the Dirge over the third.
Because you can get weapons elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted, the 38 is a really good weapon if you're doing that style of play where you're okay dropping your clues back on the location, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's so many other options available to Roland that that's not necessary.
And also, if you're sticking to the plan,
yeah,
and can pack extra ammunition from the get-go, we'll get there.
Oh boy, I'm excited to.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Mysteries Remain too is that you could, I mean, obviously you can put it on a location and get it right away if you're with an enemy, but you could also just throw it on a one shroud location and you get an easy clue.
Yeah.
So it makes so many options. It's great. So the other announcement was like
let's get to this one.
The day after, I think it was, which was completely surprising. So this was announcing a new novella, the pre-order for it. So unlike the other ones, it's not out right away. They're taking pre-orders. This is To Fight the Black Wind, which is my previous hypothesis about this being an Akachi novel was completely and utterly wrong. Because we have a brand new investigator who will, like Norman, will show up later, but we're getting her early, her alternate cards before the actual cards. And this is Carolyn Fern, the newest Guardian investigators. So I will skip my turn and go ahead and let Nick read this one before he bites my hand off.
I am really excited for Carolyn. All right, so Carolyn Fern is a Guardian investigator. Her subtitle is The Psychologist, and her trait is Medic. Her stat line is 3 will, 4 intellect, 2 combat, and 2 agility. And her game text reads, reaction, after one of your card effects heals horror from an investigator or ally asset. The healed card's controller gains a resource. Very nice, I love it. And then her Elder Sign effect, +1. You may heal 1 horror from an investigator or ally asset at your location. She has 6 health and 9 sanity. And I am so excited for Carolyn. Like, super excited. Oh my god.
So I feel like the first thing we got to talk about is that this is a blue investigator with sub 3 combat. Which I love.
Yes.
I love the idea that our classes are not bound to stats. They are bound to character motivations and I guess kind of general strategic approaches or skills, I guess. I don't know. But yeah. She looks fun.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited to build a 100% support deck with Carolyn, and to use my favorite class. Like when we talked about player roles and how the classes kind of fit those roles or how they don't or whatever. Like Guardian always fell into that support, but the problem was that the investigators that we had could take support cards, but they were often much better for being like the damage characters, obviously with like Roland or Mark or whatever. But the fact that Carolyn is straight up, like, you don't want to do combat with her. You have tools to do it, you know, if you need to, but really she's obviously meant to be dealing into, or to be diving into those support cards that Guardian has to offer. And there are a lot of them. So that is very exciting.
Yeah.
It's also interesting is in the article, there's a little blurb where, however, she's still driven by her wish to understand the mythos as the world is widened and its mysteries are laid before her, enabling her to include either Seeker or Mystic cards in her investigator deck. The either or stuck with me for a second. Like, like, did you have to choose when you build the deck?
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess we don't know yet. We haven't seen the back of the card, but that would be pretty cool if it's one where, you know, based on the other players or the other investigators that you're running with, you know, she's a little more kind of flexible, like front end flexible, I guess. So.
Yeah, as usual, they do not include the card back so they can drive us all crazy with speculation. But I think this is an investigator that's clearly best in multiplayer. I'll definitely give her a run solo just because I give every investigator a run solo. And I think just having 4 intellect, she'll have a good shot in solo. Because I mean, she's in a class with plenty of combat buffs, so I think she'll be okay in dealing with monsters. It's more so her ability isn't gonna it's not gonna go off as often as in multiplayer, obviously. So you're not gonna get the full effect of that. But
do you think she's gonna be able to take level 5 Guardian cards? Like, when I think about the design space that might get tackled here, where, you know, this is a Guardian character who, Guardian is support, but a lot of that support, at least thus far, has been kind of bent toward fight. Do you think that maybe that's going to be one of her things, that she can only take up to like level 3 Guardian cards, and she can take higher level Mystic or Seeker, or however that ends up playing out?
That's a possibility.
Basically what I'm asking is, Carolyn Fern, can she take the lightning gun?
Well, and here's the thing, like if we look at the cards that Guardian has that are 4 or 5 experience, they're all combat cards anyway, aren't they? Like I can't think of any that are like healing related, other than I've had worse, but that's not really healing. That's that's responding to a monster or responding to an enemy. So I think that even if she couldn't go 4 or 5 experience for Guardian, that would totally fit like her theme and everything, because again, most of those cards are weapons and such. So I'd be excited to have a character that can go up to level 2 Guardian and then up to level 5 Seeker. Like I think that'd be really awesome.
Yeah, I wonder if she's going to have similar to Marie, where it's kind of more complicated, and maybe she'll come out in the same box as Marie, because Marie is 0 to 3 Mystic, so maybe she's like 0 to 3 Guardian, and then Marie can choose up to 5 either Seeker or Survivor, so maybe Carolyn has something similar, and then she has like up to level 5 of some kind of trait, whatever like works best for healing, I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that being the case, too. There's really...
I don't know. I think that's foolishness.
Okay. So
I was like, is there a reason behind... Like, I'm not... Oh, the cat. I got you.
That wasn't so much a gentle nudge to the next card. That was like the 300 Sparta kick.
That was... Just let's move on.
Yeah, straight into the. I will read.
You guys know me so well.
I will read. I'm sure we'll be discussing Carolyn a lot in the future. Foolishness is her signature asset, and this is an ally in a cat with some interesting art. It's actually like a picture as if someone drew Foolishness. So Foolishness is a 4-cost asset with 2 wild icons, ally and creature, and Dreamlands traded. Interesting. Foolishness enters play with 3 horror on him. Horror on him may be healed as if it were on Carolyn Fern. While Foolishness has no horror on him, you get +1 to all skills. It has 1 health and 4 sanity.
Well. How good is this?
Yeah, once you activate it, it's a dark horse without having to not have resources.
And it's a dark horse that, like, for Carolyn at least, again being Guardian, will be easy to keep active, like very easy. So that's very
because once you get the horror off Foolishness, I mean, Carolyn's got 9 sanity. It's never going back on there, right?
Well, and that's exactly it. Like, unless you're like, when do you put horror on? Like, normally you're stacking, like, you use your allies as your last ditch effort to save yourself, but in this case you're probably going to be putting it on Carolyn anyway, like, right? Like,
well, chances are it won't ultimately matter, because Carolyn's probably just going to be able to heal it all off.
Exactly. But I'm just saying, like, if you have card effects that are like take 2 horror, you're not going to put it on your ally like you normally would. In a lot of cases, you're going to be like, I'll put it on Carolyn. And then she's running 5-5-3-3, and scenario better watch out, because those are some numbers. Those are some real numbers.
Yeah, the only downside is that it does take up the valuable ally slot. But with it giving you +1 to all skills, I mean, that's kind of a bomb ally compared to other choices you could make. I mean, you can always charisma it if you need to.
I probably would run charisma simply because Guardian and Seeker have some really strong allies, and I wouldn't want to lock myself out of those. But then again, it's only a 1 of in your deck, so you're not even guaranteed. How many games do you play where you don't even see your signature? That happens pretty frequently. So,
I'd play charisma.
Oh yeah,
because
I
would
would
play
too.
Arkham Horror, the card game.
Definitely seems like calling in favors will be going in every Carolyn deck using Foolishness. Because
send Milan off to go feed your cat.
Yeah, exactly.
Your dream cat. He's like, wait, where is it?
Yeah, so that is Foolishness, and of course she doesn't get off without a signature weakness, I think it's Sean's turn. He can read To Fight the Black Wind.
To Fight the Black Wind is weakness treachery. It is a task, yo. Just talking about that. Also Dreamlands traded. Carolyn Fern deck only. Replacement. Revelation. Attach To Fight the Black Wind to the current agenda. Carolyn Fern takes 1 direct horror. Forced at the end of the round, if any amount of horror was assigned to an investigator this round and it was not healed, place a doom on the attached agenda.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So, God, that's interesting. So Carolyn takes a horror when this comes out. So you have your task set up before you, your first turn right there. I feel like this is gentler in solo.
Yeah.
Because you have way more control about both taking and healing horror when every investigator is at your location.
Right. Definitely don't want to be running this in Carcosa. Right? Because everybody takes horror all the time in pretty much every scenario in Carcosa. So you're going to have some fast agendas if you're running Carolyn in Carcosa. But I love the design of it.
Yeah. I mean, luckily it only hits one agenda, right? Once it powers through one agenda, then it's done. But oh man, can you imagine getting this like early?
Yeah.
When that first agenda is the one that's like, hey, we're gentle now, so you can set up for that shit later.
Right.
It's also very agenda dependent too, in terms of like the doom threshold. Like if this comes up on a 12 doom threshold, then you're like, oh god, that's the whole game compared to a 3 doom.
A 3, yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah. And in higher player counts, it's going to be tough because maybe 2 different investigators took horror, and you have to bother healing both of them. You're kind of going to be joined to the hip to your other players at that point, just following them around wherever they go, so you can get healing on them.
Well, I'll probably be taking Mystic for astral travel just for that reason.
You're gonna be begging them not to commit cards to encounter tests so that you have horror to heal. Like, don't just fail this test. It's okay, just take the 2 horror, just fail the test.
She should be fun though.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Also, and
I don't know, I like any card, like we were talking about foolishness. I like any card that just makes you play differently, right? Like Nick, you were mentioning, it just reverses the order of operations for where you're going to put horror.
And also, I know I've said this joke multiple times in the Discord chat, but I do want to say it on the air. Like, does anyone else, when they hear To Fight the Black Wind, does that make them think of like a fart joke at all? Like, is it no, just me? Is it just me? I know it's run its course by now, but it hasn't been on the podcast yet, so just me. Okay, thanks, Casey.
I had to immortalize it. Yeah, it's going to be the most fun part is I think it's going to really, like you were talking earlier, Nick, about the support approach, that it's going to make you include a lot of cards that you might have ignored before. Like I could even see you're the healer, but you're not going to be healing all the time. So maybe you really leverage teamwork and you're just like passing out guns to everyone. So.
Then, yeah, I would love to do a Carolyn Fern build that's teamwork and, first aid and stick to the plan and stuff like that. Oh, that'd be so fun.
Oh man, she can take level 3 quiche with stick to the plan. Assuming she can take level 3 guardian cards. That's pretty cool. Just load up those first aids. Yeah,
level 3 quiche is definitely going to be a must-buy for sure. It's going to be fun. Can't wait to... hopefully we won't have to wait too long for it to come out. Maybe another few weeks or a month or something, depending on how far they want to space them apart. So if you thought that was the end of our news, that wasn't. Because I think... because we skipped a week recording last week, FFG decided to drop all the news down. So this is Threads.
They're not looking.
We got the announcement for the first Mythos pack in the Forgotten Age cycle, which is Threads of Fate. So this goes through and it kind of spoils a little bit about how Forgotten Age ends, so I won't go too much into that. The part I will highlight is that it includes 24 freaking act cards, which I don't even know how they're going to find space for it in the pack. Probably they'll use a lot of other encounter sets, but there's lots of branching paths in this one to use all those acts, so this looks really cool. It's like really leveraging what Arkham can do to tell a branching story, and you get to kind of I think it approaches that true RPG feel of you can go anywhere and do anything and pursue these different paths and with different consequences. So I'm looking forward to this one a lot. So they, in addition to kind of going over that mechanic in the story, they also previewed a couple of new player cards. The first one is Arcane Research. This is a purple card, so I think it'll be up to Sean to read this one.
Finding the link. Here it is.
Processing. Calibrating.
Yeah.
All right. Arcane Research is a level 0, null-costed mystic asset. It has the talent trait, the permanent keyword. So that's a level 0 permanent, y'all. When you purchase Arcane Research, suffer 1 mental trauma. After each scenario of a campaign, reduce the experience cost of the first spell card you upgrade before the next scenario by 1. Yeah. I mean, if you're playing spells, that's going to pay dividends and some.
Mm-hmm.
And Mystic is not short on ways to heal horror. Or manipulate horror, as it were, so...
I was going to say, they've only got a...
pretty good.
Yeah, now this raised the question, just because it's worded as when you purchase Arcane Research, can you include this in a level 0 deck?
Yes, because technically you're purchasing your level 0 cards at deck creation.
Yep. Yeah, I think a few people wanted to confirm with Matt, and yeah, he confirmed that you can buy it right away, and you should take the mental trauma right away as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing you probably don't want to do is swap this out with adaptable multiple times throughout a campaign. With Safina.
Unless you're going for the ultimate desperate build.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you even swap out a permanent card? I'm rusty on the
Probably
permanent
not.
rules. Probably not.
Is it technically in your deck?
It
Or
is
just a part
permanent.
of it?
You know, if you wanted to, I'd let you house rule it.
If you want to do that,
Thanks,
too.
Nick.
I just want to get to 4
I
trauma.
knew you'd have me.
I mean, I don't see a reason why any mystic should really not take it.
Yeah, I really
Yeah,
don't
I mean-
either. It doesn't count against your... Like, the fact that it's permanent, like... Why not? Like, you just put
This is like assuming you're buying a spell every turn, this is like a free, or every scenario, this is like a free Delve Too Deep that you didn't have to draw for.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, someone like Akachi obviously is going to love it because she takes tons of spells, but I mean, all the mystics do.
Right.
So.
What if...
One thing that's interesting about this, though, is it might slow you down in how quickly you're buying spells. So, for instance, if I've got 6 experience and I want to upgrade both my Shrivelings to level 3, I might think about doing that one scenario at a time because I'm wasting that second Shriveling discount. So,
Right.
it might make you think about it a little bit more than you would have otherwise, but I can hardly call that a downside.
No, not when it's opening up XP that you could spend on other stuff. So
Do you foresee yourself doing that often, though? Just buying 1 copy of, say, upgraded Shriveling, just so that you can save...
Oh, sorry, say that again, Nick.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm cutting out so much today. Do you foresee yourself doing that, though? Like, only buying 1 copy of upgraded Shriveling, just because of that 1 XP discount you want to get next time? Like... I honestly...
Maybe that was a bad example, but yeah, it would depend on the investigator. Like, if
Sure.
I can afford to wait, then overall that's the more efficient purchase, right?
Yeah, you would think so. But at the same... Like, I'm always the one where I go 2 copies of everything, if at all possible, and then cut down to 1. Like, to me, having 2 copies versus 1 ofs, it's such a huge swing as far as how often you're going to see it. So only upgrading 1 of them versus upgrading both, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll let you know when this pack releases. 'Cause it's probably going in just about every purple deck I ever made.
It should be going in pretty much every purple deck anyone ever makes.
is the ultimate
Easy could take this.
is
too.
the ultimate jankery. Imagine if You had a Jenny Green Man Medallion Arcane Research spell slinging deck.
Wow.
Never pay for a spell.
Wait, we do suggestion, right? That's the only one
that's
at a
it,
discount at the
Yeah,
moment.
that's unfortunately the only one she could actually purchase.
So when
But
Rogue,
hopefully we'll get some more rogue spells in the future.
That's worth a tremor, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. I did say it was the ultimate jankery. Okay, so the other level 0 permanent is Shrewd Analysis, which is a seeker asset, also null costed, talent traded, permanent, limit 1 per deck. Anytime you upgrade a card with the unidentified or untranslated subtitle, you may upgrade a second copy of that card at no experience cost. If you do, the 2 upgraded versions are chosen at random from among the eligible options. You must still meet all deck building restrictions.
that is awesome. I love the theme of it. The fact that it's like you straight up don't know what you're gonna get, like just as if you really were identifying the solution. You know, you can't be like, oh, I identified it, so I want it to be freezing, or like it's so cool. And also this confirms that we're probably going to be seeing unidentified or untranslated seeker cards in, I would for sure, Forgotten Age as well, but probably even each set after that, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It seems like a cool theme for some of their cards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll ever get any other types like that, or if this means that all the rest will also be unidentified or untranslated. But maybe we'll have an unidentified donut or something. Unidentified bagel. It's the raisin one. No.
Wow. You thought it was chocolate chip. That would be a weakness.
Yeah,
Like a
that'd be a
treachery that
mental
you draw.
trauma.
Wait, that dude is just real satisfied that he finished his Connect the Dots.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. The most.
Look at how proud he is.
The most satisfied anyone's ever been. But this is also another one where there's no reason to take it, especially because there's no drawback to it. I mean, there is potentially if you use it, but it says you may upgrade, so you may activate that ability. So this is pretty much just every Seeker has this ability from now on, and they can use it if they want or not. They can decide at the time.
Yeah, it's kind of, and I mean, I say this as someone like who comes from Hearthstone and sees this kind of stuff, but it's a little annoying that we have cards like this now where it's just like, yep, it goes in every yellow deck. Like, just take it. There's no reason not to. Simply because, granted, at the you don't have to include archaic glyphs or strange solution in your deck, and honestly, I often don't. Simply because
It's been a while since I have.
right, just because I'm all about efficiency, and those things are not efficient. Like they have a payoff, later on, but I haven't gotten to the point where I feel like it's worth it yet. And it kind of sucks that now we have cards that are just like put them in every deck. Like this is good, always use it. But at the same time, this is cool, and I love the fact that it's random. Like I love the fact that you get the random result. So.
Yeah, I don't mind it if it's kind of sparing. Like, if it gets to the point where there's 8 auto-include 0 permanents for a class, then it's kind of like, this gets to be a bit much to keep track of and include. But I like it if it's kind of maybe 1 or 2 for each class, something like that.
Do you think...
As far as the... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you think...
Same question,
do you think that we'll get, permanents for the other classes then? Like a green, a blue, and a red permanent that are similar?
I would assume so.
Possibly.
We normally get these kinds of cards in sets.
Well, kind of,
I
but...
have no idea what the other classes are going to do.
Right, like would a blue one be a gun thing, and would a green one be... I don't even know. Illicit? What would you do? I don't even know. Exceptional? Nah, I don't know. Red would probably be exile related. Maybe.
Yeah, they all seem to have something to do with upgrading, so yeah. Yeah, maybe it's like criminal connections and it's a discount on illicit cards or something. I would have to look at what the illicit upgrades are, but...
Oh man, if the Survivor one like reduces the cost of repurchasing an exile card back into your deck, no, that'd be too powerful. That'd be way too.
That would be way too... It would nullify the exile keyword.
It would have to give you some severe penalty to do it each time or something. I don't know. maybe an alternate cost instead of the actual XP.
Right, yeah. Take a trauma instead of spending the XP. Would that be worth it? Would you? Oh, that's weird. I don't know. That's a weird one.
What if it was?
Either.
What if instead of a trauma, it was like a like you start with 1 damage in horror next scenario or something, so it's not as bad as a trauma, but it's
temporary trauma.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Interesting. I love I just love the design, like the design space that this opens up. I love that. I love that these exist, even if I'm not going to, even if I'm not super into them, like these two specifically. I love what this means for the design space.
Yeah, they're just continually pushing boundaries and exploring new space. I'm not sure how much I'd use the actual ability, at least with Strange Solution, because one of them is just clearly better than the others. Especially in solo. It's like, in solo, I really need the damage one. If I get one of the other ones, I'm screwed. So, but if you're in multiplayer or something, and you can just, you're just looking for something helpful, it doesn't need to be a specific one, then I could see it. So that's about it for the news. That was a whole hurricane of news we got.
Well, we're only an hour in at this point, guys. We're slacking. All right, so then without any fanfare or further ado, let's move it into our Mythos pack roundup. So let's start with the Phantom of Truth. Mm-hmm. The player cards in this one. Any standouts for you guys?
Clicking to the list. Processing.
Upgraded. Logical reasoning, I think, is a godsend as someone who plays Roland.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge Roland card for sure.
Yeah, I've gotten good use out of that one, definitely.
Because I mentioned it earlier, and I've gotten a good use out of this in Skids, and also, oh god, who else did I take this with recently? I think York. Yeah, I took it with York in our campaign, Sean. The upgraded 45 automatic level 2. This is one I know some in the community were a little down on at first because they were thinking, well, we have, why not just upgrade to a shotgun or to a lightning gun? But I really like having this mid-range option that gives you +2, which +2 compared to +1 means a lot, especially for Skids. Going to 5 compared to 4 is huge. And also, don't sleep on the fact you get to blank the retaliate keyword, because that can be huge. Because that saves you don't have to commit as much. Because sometimes when I'm facing retaliate, like, I'm always just committing the max, because if you get hit back, it just hurts too much. And this saves you on doing that. You can gamble a little more.
I'd like to throw a shout out to Quantum Flux. It's a little gem. I think probably a lot of people look right on by it, but if you've got a heavy draw deck, that thing is money.
I was just gonna ask because I saw Quantum Flux and I was like, okay, I love that this exists. I don't know where it fits, but you're actually getting a lot of use out of it, are you, Sean?
Well, it's not going in every deck. I played it in a standalone Daisy build that I threw together, and with Daisy, kind of drawing and subsequently burning through so many cards, and she's getting down to 5-10 cards in her deck. It's a real nice thing to have, to be like, oh hey, let's see those. I've got a plans again. Let's see those. Mind over matters or deductions or anything along those lines. And I think more than anything, this is a silver bullet for Beyond the Veil in Dunwich.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I think it's a bomb Safina card for recycling Painted Worlds. Once you've used them all, just get them back in your deck, and so you can get more uses out of them.
Doesn't Painted World remove itself from the game? No? Oh, God. Good card.
Casey in chat says they are. I'll have to look it up, though. I'm not sure.
And since Scott's not here, I'll throw out a special mention to Snare Trap.
That was another one I was going to ask if we've gotten use out of it.
I've only put it in one deck, and I didn't see it. But, God, just the idea of it is so fun. And the fact that, on the board, what is happening when that card activates mirrors what is happening in the world, right? So like it attaches, it exhausts it, he goes sideways. Probably upside down in the real world, but anyway. I love the idea, and I don't know if I've seen a build for it yet. I might have to just try it out myself, but I love the idea of a Home Alone Wendy deck where it's snare traps and hiding spots and waylay and just all this stuff to leverage your survivor tricks against enemies. So, yeah, like that card.
Wait till we get...
I'm not sure how good it is, but I really like it.
Wait till we get, like, the Trap Master upgrade, or, like, permanent, where it lets you recycle traps from your discard pile or whatever.
Yeah, Casey is right. It is removed from the game, so I'm going to turn in my rogue credentials now. But I still think it's a good Safina card, because she is so event heavy that you want to shuffle and get more uses out of them. So it's almost like another Painted World in a way.
Right.
But I think any event heavy investigator.
I also really like recharge if you're running big, impactful spells. I don't know that I'm anxious to burn this on a level 0 shriveling, but recharge. You throw 3 charges on it, pull a token. If it's a bad stuff token, you discard it instead. So it's kind of like a free extra ammo for your spells, at the risk of it just going away. But chances are you're not playing this till it's about empty anyway. So it going away, it's a 0-cost event. Yeah, it's not that bad. I like it as a one of in. I've run it in Akachi, who cares a lot about charges. So,
well, and this would be good for like the 2 spells that I think of immediately are Shriveling upgraded and Rite of Seeking upgraded. Like those are 2 that you probably want to have out the majority of the game. So,
I think this is also potentially good for a Grotesque Statue, which is a relic and does use charges. That one does discard itself when it's done, so you would have to use it on 1 charge and potentially lose that charge. But
you could use that charge on... No.
Because then it would discard itself, right?
Damn, it should be a reaction. A forced reaction. Oh, well. How about... okay, so I've gotten to use this one time, but I got to throw a mention out there for I'll See You in Hell, purely for the attitude reflected in that card.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you can just be like, no, I just defeat you all, and you're going down with me. Yeah. That has replaced... I have a singleton, I'll See You in Hell, and basically every investigator who can take it, and it's kind of replaced, like, Overpower. Just in case that situation ever comes up. And I've defeated 3 enemies with it once, with the Zoe build. It was real cool.
So my Carolyn Fern taunt deck, I'll See You in Hell.
that could be interesting.
Taunt, I'll see you in hell. Okay, guys, finish up.
Man, there's shenanigans to be had there in standalone. Like, can you imagine a standalone Zoe with level 2 taunt, just like pulling 5 enemies over and being like, "All right, I cleared the board for you guys. Finish her up."
I can, yeah. Like, imagine if I had this for I basically had this when the one game I played Zoe, where I pulled all the enemies off everybody with taunt. But then the spheres ate them all, so.
I could even see this as an emergency button to avoid mental trauma. Like, if you know you're going down from horror for some reason, because you know the way the scenario ends, it gives you mental trauma if you lose, or there's an enemy that's going to knock you insane, that you could do. It's much better to take physical trauma than mental as a guardian, so...
How many?
All right, now before this turns into the AV club. Sorry, Nick. Do you want to toss that one?
I was just gonna say, how many non-elite enemies are there with victory points? Because you could use this to score some last-minute victory points before you go down. But I don't think there's many of them.
Yeah, there's like probably 1 per scenario, I want to say. Usually. I wouldn't count on it, though. I wouldn't build around that.
Yeah.
Okay, so talking about the scenario itself, Nick, I do appreciate the Blade Runner reference in the show notes here. Do investigators dream of tentacled sheep? The dream sequence I thought was brilliant.
Yes.
Oh.
And every time I've played it, I've kind of like put everything down, turned things off, and just kind of like, all right, let's go through this again, see what happens. What do you guys think of the dream sequence? Oh, wait, hang on. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. We actually remembered, at least.
And the Pallid Mask. We're going hard. nothing's off limits now. So turn off if you don't want to hear things. Okay, back to dream sequence.
I love it for all of the games other than those 3 min games that I did where I was just testing the deck out. Because then I was just like, get me through this. Come on, like let's just set up. Let's just go. But otherwise, yeah, it's really cool, really awesome how that's set up and how it's kind of like a choose your own adventure almost within that one scenario.
Yeah, it and the fact that it's all out of order to add to the dream craziness, which can be tough when you're playing it late at night and your brain is foggy.
And that's got to be 100% intentional, right? That they printed it out of order.
Yeah, for sure.
So like you're like streaming through this dream world and you're seeing little glimpses of other dreams, but not actually reading them.
Yeah, I love that it's kind of a chance for the investigator to... I don't know, it's just cool because it kind of touches on different moments from what they've experienced already. So it is giving you that sense of like a dreamscape where all these random things are happening. But then it's also playing into the campaign. Like, if you chose to slay the monsters, we were speculating for a while about was there going to be a penalty for that? Then you get a mental trauma for that. And I don't know if that's going to be the other only penalty or if we'll see one later on. But that at least, that's pretty substantial. Taking that mental trauma, and yeah, it was just a great choice for this cycle in particular. I think to have that kind of pause moment in the campaign be this little dream.
Or how about stealing from the box office finally coming back to bite you? Because you get paranoia for that, right? Under Dream 7? I'm looking at the insert right now.
Yeah. That has not come back to bite me yet, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so if the police are suspicious of you, you go to Dream 7, which gives the lead investigator paranoia. So I thought that was... Like, because Matt's he's just roping a dope with us, right? Because the stealing the luggage in Essex back in Dunwich didn't ultimately do anything, but we kind of thought about it. And now we're like, whatever, steal from the box office. Paranoia.
Well, and that was a record in your campaign log, wasn't it? At the end of the scenario?
Mm-hmm.
I brought that up like it meant something, but then I realized that it didn't.
All right, so then moving on to the scenario itself. What do you guys think of the big map of Paris? I thought that was...
Love it!
Yeah, I know Nick likes his big maps.
As someone who plays a lot of heavy evasion characters, I love big maps. Big maps are a huge boon to that style.
I tend to really like the scenarios that kind of more or less resemble Midnight Masks in that you're given your board and an objective, and then the game mechanics just kind of make the magic happen as you go through.
Right. I agree. That's probably my favorite style of scenario in general in this game.
It's also an interesting map because you have the rail station, which can take you to the other rail, which is a cool touch. And then there's also, depending on what random locations you get, there could be potentially like this choke point in the middle of it that when you get there, you can't move out of it on the same turn. So yeah, it makes for some interesting movement decisions.
Sure does. So now this is the one, storyline-wise, this is the one that was very obviously heavily influenced by In the Court of the Dragon, from The King in Yellow. God, the organist. The first time I played this, I was grinning ear to ear the whole time at watching everything unfold. Because I played it with, my first playthrough on this one was my Lightning Gun Zoe and Norman Withers campaign. And I didn't put enough stock in moving quickly on that first agenda and advancing via clues versus letting it go via doom. So I got chased. I got what's the Hopeless I Defied Him? Is that the side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where you're getting chased? Yeah, so that was fun because both of those investigators up to that point had been kind of more aggressive because Zoe's Zoe and Norman can build into all the weapons that Mystics have available to them. So both of them have been kind of like rush up to the enemies, murder their faces, and move on. So kind of having to play a little bit of mouse and cat, I suppose. It was really interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
this is...
Go ahead, Ian.
We should mention that this is kind of the first big payoff of the doubt conviction. We've been speculating and speculating, and then finally, this basically gives us two completely different scenarios depending on whether you're more doubt or conviction.
Yeah, and I've only played the version... I played the scenario 4 times, but I've only done the version that has Hopeless I Defied Him, where he is pursuing you. So that was... So I know that one really well.
Yeah, out of my campaigns, I've only done the doubt chasing him route once. I guess that speaks to for some reason I keep ending on the conviction route. They are both, they obviously feel very differently. I think I like the one where you get chased more. But I was also doing the one where you chase him with Agnes, which she just happens to be good at putting damage on people. So, yeah. It wasn't as much of a challenge is what I'm trying to say. But it might be with a different investigator.
I also feel like the one where you're chasing him is way easier with more players because you can kind of loop back and manipulate where he's going to go based on where you guys all end your turns. Like, I could do it with... I just ran through it with my Roland and Jim campaign. I was able to manipulate where he goes almost every turn with 2 investigators. With 3 or 4, you can definitely play around with it a little bit more. Okay, so other notable cards in this encounter deck. I know the Bayakis really kind of come at you hard and fast for the first time in the campaign.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because this scenario has, I mean, it's Carcosa, so we have that set that has, like, Spires of Carcosa and Black Stars Rise and all that. But, like, we have these cards that are adding Doom, which could be a good thing, which is interesting. Or not necessarily a good thing, but it could be, it could be preferable. Because when the agenda advances, you get, at least in the one where he's chasing you, you get that reset. You get that, like, okay, move him, move you. You get two locations of space now to, work with. So that's, it's interesting how that plays.
I've definitely played down, like, a Renfield or, used Blood Pact to advance the agenda one turn early just because I needed the reprieve. So it's cool to be able to do that. And then I know I mentioned on the last episode my ridiculous Renfield discovery where, God, now I can't even remember what the conditions are, but I'm pretty sure it's if you have more conviction than doubt and you advance via clues. I'm pretty sure that's how it plays. Then you're chasing him, and any doom not on the agenda subtract from the agenda amount. So with David Renfield on the board, you can basically make the night last as long as you want to.
Well,
which is fun.
It doesn't matter if you advance via clues or not. Like, the only thing that changes is you get horror. That
just determines whether you get horror, yep.
Mm-hmm. Like, the scenario setup will determine if you're being chased or chasing.
Yeah, it's just the conviction and doubt thing.
And
right on.
I like the flavor of it that the conviction run where he's, or kind of how I remember it, is that the conviction run is you're convinced he's kind of like a real threat, and so he's coming after you and he has that power, whereas the doubt route is you don't believe this stuff is real, so you kind of have to chase down this mysterious figure and get answers. So I like how that plays out. Another encounter card that I thought was interesting, more so just because it's something a little different, and the art and how it plays into it, is Torturous Chords, which is the one where you test will, and depending on how much you fail, it puts resources, and then it increases the cost of each card you play by 1, and then you remove a resource each time you do that.
I love the design of that card.
Because it's not a debilitating penalty. It's just consistent. Like, it's not going to shut down you playing stuff, but it is going to slow you down across multiple turns. So,
yeah, and if you're in a situation where you're, trying to move quickly, trying to pump out those cards to answer the problems, then yeah, it's really good at chipping away your efficiency.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? This was one that overall I didn't mind with my temporary min deck.
Go on.
Well, because most of my events were 0 or 1 cost anyway, and I had no assets that I needed to get out, so it just, it was like, okay, I got it.
Well,
guess
there's an advantage at least.
Right.
Do you guys ever, because that's not limit 1 per investigator, right? Do you guys ever double up on those?
I have not.
It's fun. Well, I guess I'm playing 3 for this mind over matter.
Ooh, that would suck.
Yeah, that's rough. There's also some very cool location effects in this one. There's the one location, well, at least one of the versions of it, where you can spend a resource to add 1 supply or ammo token to a card you control. I was using that a ton with my roll-in play. This was another conviction run, so I had to run away. So when you're doing that, you're circling the map like, however many times in a scenario, and he had his 38 out. So basically I was able to use the 38 the whole scenario because I just kept refilling it each time I got there, like pit stop. And yeah, I was able to use those.
I believe you're referring to Montmartre.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. That's the one.
Or how about the canal? God, I love the effect on the canal. And that's the one where after you evade an enemy at the canal, you can move it to an adjacent location. Because you pushed it in the drink.
Mm-hmm. And then that pairs up really nice with the evading the organist version, because then it's you just spend a clue to automatically evade them. And then, boom. And it's a free action. It doesn't cost you an action to do it. So
you really put some space between you. All right. So play tips. Any overarching strategies, you guys? Let's take it first. If you're being chased, if he's coming after you, evade, get clues. Is that it?
Run Deciphered Reality and open up that map, because that worked really well.
I mean, a lot of it is just kind of, you just stay ahead of him, make sure he's not catching up to you. I guess one concrete tip I can give is I think it's the La Marais. I'm rusty on French. One of the locations. I like to go to that one early before the organist appears and check whether it's the version that when you enter it, you can't leave for the remainder of the round.
Yes.
Or whether it's the other one, which gives you a card or something. Because
it's a real bummer to run headlong into the one that stops you cold.
Yep. So I do that scouting early, make sure I know which one it is, so that when the organist appears, I know which way I need to run.
Well, and that's a rail location, so you could potentially go to that action 1 of the game, just to get an idea. So,
yep.
If you don't have Jordan Perry's information,
right.
Which how much of a boon have you guys found that to be to start at Montparnasse as opposed to the railroad?
I actually haven't started with it, so I can't really speak to that.
I haven't seen a huge difference, really. I think it's more... Is he the one that you also get 3 extra resources? Yeah, I think the resources are a bigger deal than the different location.
Super glossed over the extra resources every time I've had that. Go me, playing hard mode.
You miss Mr. Moneybank's free resources to you.
I feel like that's more the point than the different location.
I think so too,
yeah.
The location just lets you chuck willpower icons for resources, so yeah. So I think the main thing I look at when I'm being chased by the organist, because he can double move, is just always be aware of how far he can reach,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also being aware of how far he can reach and then also attack, because if he moves twice, then at least you're safe from an attack that round, because god damn, 3 horror oh man, that's threatening. It makes him so terrifying.
Yes,
especially in this campaign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think the biggest things to manage are, because you can spend a clue to evade him versus advancing the agenda. So I try to keep at least 1 or 2 clues around just for the emergency evades if for some reason I'm not able to keep ahead of him. And then also keep in mind his text, which is if he moves the extra location, he'll get to you, but he won't attack you. So you can use your clue for the emergency evade next turn or whatever if you need to get away.
Yeah, and I think this scenario is just so much about surprise attacks from enemies, right? Because the Bayakis can move in unexpected ways. You've got is it Speedy Bayaki? That's not right. Swift Bayaki?
Stealthy?
The one Stealthy is the one with the high fight value, right?
It is.
Until it's evaded.
I think it's
I'm
Swift.
thinking about the one where Swift.
I think it
is. The one that instead of just moving one location, it moves to you. It just goes. It just finds you. That one can be tricky to play around if you're not ready to handle enemies. And then, that Stealthy Bayaki is not a whole lot of fun either.
Well, and then you have the one location, the Gardens of Luxembourg, that you're just suddenly a Bayaki magnet.
Yeah.
The Garden of Luxembourg. Luxembourg? Yeah, Luxembourg.
I must be cutting out really bad because I did say all that.
Oh, yeah, you are. Sorry, I totally didn't hear you say
Damn,
that.
I wish I knew what was going on.
Adjust the sensitivity in your Discord. That might be.
Don't tell me what to do.
Okay, I'm sorry. You can if you want.
You guys heard that one fine, but
Yeah.
So then I suppose flipping it on its head. If you're doing the chasing, how does that change how you play?
don't know.
I think the only thing I would say is because I've pretty much entirely played at least two investigators every time through this. I still need to do my true solo Carcosa, but I'm not sure which investigator I want to do that with. Is you kind of have to corral the organist a little bit. You kind of have to keep in mind, okay, when this turn ends, who's going to be the closest, and then what are the options for where he moves away? Because there are lots of situations where you can move him to another investigator's location because that's the only option, and you can kind of bypass that restriction in his movement text. So I feel like just keeping super aware of when you want to be attacking him and keeping him in a place where you can get there and do it efficiently.
Yeah, I know. As I mentioned, I only did it once with Solo Agnes, and I don't remember it being a particular problem. Like, once you're able to catch up to him, and then I think at the end of the round, if he's engaged, then at the end of the enemy phase, then he disengages. But I feel like once you get him, then it's easy to kind of keep him there and just start pounding away. Which, if you have an investigator with decent ways to attack, like Agnes does with her high willpower and spells, then it's not a huge issue, I think.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I feel like overall this scenario is not the most difficult one. It's more so a lot of times the difficulty comes when I'm putting myself in awkward situations in order to get XP. Because some of the XP locations tend to be out of the normal kind of circular path around the map that you take, especially when you're getting chased, and you have to go outside those to get XP.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? If you're being a VP hound, which I would kind of encourage everyone to be, when you're moving the organist, you kind of have to think about that too. Like, can I move him over to what's the Grand Guignol? Like, can I get him over there? Can we kind of work toward it? Like, should I just let him go off and do his thing while I gather clues and prepare for a bigger push later? I tend to do that for. Like, I tend to just kind of let the organist do his own thing for the first few turns, gather some clues, and then start making a push at him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my strategy is for this scenario is so colored by the fact that the last game I played was with that super atypical deck, because honestly, by the time Act 2 comes up, I have 0 clues left to get. So... but yeah, because of Deciphered Reality and not having to play assets, so just running around and, but yeah, and then there's also that question as far as like, when do you spend clues to add doom? When do you spend clues to automatically evade, if that's an option? So, you gotta play with that as well.
All right, so then talking about resolutions, I think ultimately, narrative-wise, we kind of get to the same place. I suppose we could say that about just about any scenario. But so if you successfully complete the objective, whichever it is, chasing or surviving, then you find Nigel's home. If you've intruded on a secret meeting, that finally comes around. What'd you guys think of that difference on finding Nigel, quote unquote, alive versus not? What do you think it means? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to refresh my memory now.
Should I rephrase the question?
Where does the secret meeting? Where is that triggered? I forget where that comes up.
Is that
on
the
back of the? It's on the back of the act. So basically, once you complete the objective, if you
No. I'm sorry. Where do you record in your campaign log that you've intruded on a secret meeting?
Oh, that would be the Last King. If you decide to go back and investigate the house because you feel like things have calmed down.
That's right. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I know what you're talking about. Sorry. I did have the one doubt played. I did get the R2 from intruding on the secret meeting, and it is, that's one of the few times that this card game has really authentically deeply disturbed me. That's when you find basically Nigel's, you talk to him, and then after I think he goes into another room or something, then you get this sense of time passing. You go in there, and it's like his decayed body hanging there, which is it's that is a pretty crazy resolution to that.
That's what the kids are calling a mind fuck nowadays.
Yeah, totally.
And you get a couple of extra experience for that, but at the cost of a mental trauma.
Right.
And I had forgotten about that for this last campaign because I've kind of switched to using the digital campaign log. As much as I love my handwritten one, the digital one is just so goddamn slick.
Saves so much time.
Yeah. So I was just kind of going through. I didn't actually read the full mechanical resolution. I just read the story thing. Moving along, set up the next scenario, and all of a sudden my campaign log is showing up that both Roland and Jim should have a mental trauma. I'm like, what the hell? That didn't... Oh, goddamn.
Yeah, that's happened to me too. When I look at it later in a campaign, I'm like, what the hell is this mental trauma for? So now I've started putting in parentheses in my notes where the trauma comes from, which helps.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Exactly. But yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
That's cool how that secret meeting actually plays a part. A lot of the threads are coming together.
Yeah. And it actually, it's one thing to get a cool, story Easter egg, but it's cool that it's actually coming across and doing something for the, the mechanics of the game too. Giving you some extra XP and taking your mental state down a little bit. Okay. So I think that wraps it up for the Phantom of Truth, unless anyone has any final thoughts.
Nope. I think we're ready
Hard
for
pass.
Mask.
Let's move it on to the Pallid Mask. Player cards.
Oh, yeah. Back to the Arkham DB mobile.
So before anyone else gets to it, I'll call out level 3 emergency quiche. I know we talked about this a fair amount when it was previewed, but I think the increase of resources is cool by itself. And the fact that this can, from now till the rest of the game, replenish supplies, I feel like this is a card that's just going to get better with age.
The card I need to call out is one of my new favorite rogue cards, which I've been using in the Solo Skids campaign and pretty much any other rogues now, is Watch This. Skill card with all the icons. It's up intellect, and then you can basically gamble up to 3 resources, and if you succeed by 1 or more, you get twice that many back. And me, I always gamble 3 resources.
Of course you
You're
do.
going to go big.
Yeah, if I'm going to get my full value, or I'm going to be disappointed. But
God, I'm looking at the cards from this pack. This is a good pack.
Yeah, we got Eureka, we got Mano a Mano, we got upgraded first aid.
Level 2 shortcut.
Upgraded a chance encounter.
And level 3 scrying, doing what we want, what we wanted level 0 scrying to do.
Yeah. Free action finally.
This was the one where it's like, let's take the mediocre cards and make them better, because First Aid, Derringer, Scrying, like that was
Chance
awesome.
Encounter.
But that was always like, that one worked. You know what I mean? Like, that one was good, and now it's even better.
Yeah,
just like with
I just
Shortcut.
Never saw anyone falling over themselves to play.
No, but just like with
level
Shortcut,
one.
Shortcut was always good, and now, well, that's another thing too. Like, I think that bears a little bit more of a discussion with the upgraded Shortcut, because its role is totally different now.
Yeah,
Like-
it's not a strict upgrade. I mean, it is. This is a tough one. It's not a
It
strict
is.
upgrade, you know what I mean? Like,
Do something.
it is, but it depends on the map. It entirely
Right.
depends on the map, how much better it's going to
Whereas the level 0 is like universally good, the upgraded one is either gonna be amazing, or you're gonna be like, I kind of wish I had the level 0. Like,
Yeah.
there really isn't much in between, which is
I
interesting.
mean, yeah.
If you have a hub location, then it's gold, worth its weight in gold, but...
I could see this being huge in Carnival.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah. I need to try that now.
Yeah, I just thought of that when you said hub location. I was like, oh, like put it opposite of the cathedral or whatever, the monastery or whatever the starting location is, because you have the free
Yeah.
movement in that, but put it opposite that, and suddenly it's like the map just got a lot smaller.
Or even
Yes, 2
Rougarou.
level 2 shortcuts with stick to the plan in Roland.
Yeah. Even Rougarou for the standalones, they have those bayous, which you keep passing
yeah.
back and forth through. That would
And
be
the
nice.
bayous are usually terrible locations.
Just want to get the hell out as soon as you can.
Waylay is a fantastic windy card, along with some
Yes.
other investigators.
That's exactly the kind of card that Wendy needed. I mean, Wendy's always been good, but I've always felt like she just needs a way to defeat enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's even in the art. It's like they knew.
Yeah, we've been talking about there should be a nice, clean way for Evade to just kill a monster, and there it is. Oh, this
And,
would be
I
so
think-
great for the conglomeration of spears. That's not elite, right? I don't think that's elite.
It is not.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that because it might be. Let me look it up. It is not
Looking
elite.
at this list again, did we get a level 2 Derringer?
We did.
Was I drunk when I opened this pack? I completely missed that one.
Quite
You don't play
possibly.
rogue, so
Yeah, well, there's that. I'll throw a quick nod out there to Torrent of Power in the right deck. I don't think everyone takes it, but I played a couple copies of it in Akachi, and it saved Min's bacon a couple times. Because, with Akachi you've got scrying, or you've got some cheap way to get just charges on the board, right? And there are moments where you just want to go ham on a test, and Torrent of Power kind of gives you more flexibility in when you can do that.
yeah, I really think that Torrent of Power is you always put it in Akachi, and maybe you put one of in someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as someone who doesn't play purple, but not that often.
I just think you have to have a lot of charges about. If you've got
Right,
a lot of charges
right.
about, then spending them in this way seems pretty appealing sometimes.
Yes.
If
Oh.
if you're just running Shrivelings to help with combat, then chances are you don't want to spend those charges on anything but using it traditionally.
Right, yeah. But I mean, one charge for 2 icons, I think that's me personally, I think that's a good... I would spend 1 ammo to get 2 icons, off of a gun. So I think that's a good trade-off.
Okay, so then let's move it on into the scenario itself.
Yeah.
This one, its thing is the map, really. I thought this was really cool. It's like a procedurally generated dungeon, right?
Yes. It's like taking we haven't had a Lord of the Rings reference for a while, but there's a map in Temple of the Deceived, which that
Yes.
game does not usually have maps. Maybe part of the inspiration for Arkham, who knows. But this is kind of taking a riff on that, where it's actually procedurally, like you said, generating it as you go along, which I think is actually a better way of doing it.
How different have your maps been from one playthrough to the next? Because every time I played this scenario, it's always gone down and to the right.
Yep, me too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always followed that general pattern, but if you look at the actual shape at the end, I feel like they've all been a little bit different.
Sure. Well, and obviously the which locations are next to which is going to be the big. That's where the real variance comes in.
Yeah,
but it does seem to follow that direction.
I think the interesting thing is you can kind of intentionally shape it, and I don't know. I haven't looked at it in detail, but at least for me, I think part of the reason it does that is because I keep wanting to go to the right and play stuff to the right, because I want the Spectre to have a nice long path to have to go. But I think I don't know. I should have crunched the numbers. I'm not sure how many give you choices of like an up or a left, but maybe you could try to create one that's more close together.
Maybe you keep placing locations to the right because your brain is wired to think that left to right is progress, like everyone else. Like that's often how it goes, where it's like start on the left, go to the right, you end on the right. So
yeah, and I think the gate to hell starts with above and below, right? And I've picked below every single time. I don't know.
That was my starting location last time, and yeah, I didn't even look at the one above it. I just kept going down.
Yeah. I think also table space plays a part sometimes. Where I'm like, right? I don't want to move all the cards over. I'm just going to put it where there's space.
Yeah, that also has a change.
Yeah.
Jeez, you got a lot of enemies out in that one. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's getting dicey.
Take care of those enemies, man.
I just posted a picture of... The problem was they keep... I was handling them just fine. I just posted a picture of my current one that I have set up, of the Pallid Mask, my Jim and Roland one. I was handling enemies just fine as we traveled through, but as soon as we got to the edge of the map with the Well of Souls and the blocked passage, then all of a sudden the docents started coming out. And the only non-revealed locations were way far away. So now I've got corpse dwellers popping up and Haruko, it just came in at the entrance. It's getting dicey. I don't know if we're going to make it out of this one alive, but...
This is one scenario that I was generally okay with obscuring fog coming up, because it often came up when I didn't care. I don't think it ever attached to a location where I was like, oh no! It was always like, alright, that's fine, moving on.
Yeah, as you guys can see on the right side of mine, my Tomb of Shadows came up on the far right. And, I was thinking about advancing by defeating the man in the Pallid Mask, as opposed to getting clues. But then I started to get clue cards, and I'm like, all right, so we'll just bust on through this. And now I'm positioning myself to get these clues, and then of course obscuring fog comes up. So it's now a 6 shroud location. So I'm like, God damn it! Because now. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your story, and then I'll deviate.
Well, because your choices, and I know we're skipping ahead a little bit in discussion here, but your choices when you get to the Tomb of Shadows, if you defeat the man in the Pallid Mask, then you have to wind your way back out of the catacombs.
Yes.
If you advance via clues, you just have to get to the blocked passage. Obviously, the way my map is set up right now, blocked passage is 2 locations away.
Well, and just from the nature of how this scenario is set up, blocked passage is often... At least from my experience, it's going to be marginally closer.
Close.
Yeah, so...
Unless you have what I had when I played with my sister and her boyfriend, where we split too far up, and all of a sudden we get to the last 5 cards in the deck, and some asshole's off in the corner, generating new locations.
Yeah.
My God damn it, Nate, stop. It was okay, though. He got stuck in... whichever location it is that makes you test agility to get out. He basically got stuck in a well.
Narrow shaft or whatever.
Yes, narrow shaft. We were making jokes all night. He got stuck in the narrow shaft and then got the pit below treachery on it. Couldn't get out, and he got defeated. So, yeah.
Fitting.
Rough. Yes.
Thematically appropriate.
I feel like the getting out, like you mentioned, is usually easier through the block passage escape route, just because it's usually closer, because we've talked about how the paths kind of branch out all the way to the right. And I didn't know what happened because all my plays have been through the clues method. I didn't know what happened if you plug the man in the Pallid Mask. So my most recent play that actually explored the defeating him was with solo Roland. So it was getting towards the end, and I have this lightning gun here. I'm just gonna evaporate him. So I did, and then it says I have to go all the way back to the beginning, and I was like, oh damn! I had like 2 doom left to get all the way back to the beginning, and it didn't happen. So that was my only defeat on Pallid, was because of that. But yeah, this is actually one of my favorite scenarios in the whole campaign. Maybe it's going to end up going in my top 5, because I really, really like the way this one plays out so differently because of the map and the different situations. My solo skids, I got to the end, and then it was a blocked passage, and then the only branches were like 3 or 4 locations back. This is the only time this happened, so I had to backtrack, and Haruko happened to be coming towards me. Luckily, in the middle, there was this kind of block of 4 locations, so I kind of did like a little loop-de-loop, like having her chase me around, so I was able to get the clues I needed and get away. So there's lots of little fun little scenarios there.
This one, I was especially delighted by that choice between killing the man in the pallid mask or discovering clues, because to me, when I saw that choice, when that choice was presented to me, I immediately saw it as, wait a minute, if I don't kill him here, like maybe that'll do something as far as like making him less of a threat later on. Now I don't know, because I haven't played Black Stars Rise yet, that to follow that up with, but at least for this scenario specifically, I loved that idea that like you're giving him the opportunity, or you're, you know what I mean, like you're trying to meet him on equal ground, and then it ends up being like he shows you another way out. And I loved.
Wait, fellas.
Yeah,
He's trying to say something.
Yeah, I love that, what that meant, like narratively.
Well, I agree with you, and I find the Pallid Mask, Man in the Pallid Mask, such an interesting like villain in this campaign, because he's not like a usual villain, because half the time half the time you're not even fighting him, and most of the time he's actually leading our way. Like he directed us to the party in Last King, and in this one he's kind of trying to show you the way out. So and there's also some other resolutions that kind of hint at like he's the one that's directing you. So it's really interesting how that's gonna play out at the very end, that he obviously has his own agenda, but he's not just this enemy that just stands in your way the whole time.
But, you know, of course, you from scenario 1, you get that thing where it's like recording your campaign log, the number of times you defeat him, and so you're like, oh man, I gotta, like, kill him as, like, once per scenario, or maybe even twice in a scenario if I draw that many, you know what I mean? Like, suddenly it becomes this score that you have to rack up, and that's kind of where for me anyway, that's where my brain went after the first time I played Curtain Call. It's like, okay, defeat him. If he comes up, defeat him, and you get to add that tally. And then this scenario kind of turned it on its head a little bit, where I was like, well, I don't, maybe not.
Yeah, what exactly is going on here? There's actually a very interesting interaction with him, which is, I had the opposite of Sean, where Sean was set up to hit him, and then he had to do the clues. I was, or the reverse rather. I was set up to basically fight and kill him, because this was my very first play of the scenario too, with Sola Agnes, so she happens to be really good at pinging people with damage. So I had him on 1 damage away from dying, and then the Corpse Dweller pops out, which if you don't have that handy, dear listener, that discards a humanoid, and he was the only humanoid on the board. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yep. So suddenly my plan to defeat the Man in the Pallid Mask was completely sabotaged, and I had to do clues instead. It still turned out okay, but that was a quick pivot. I had to go on.
What a cool scene,
How
though.
weird
You're
is
sitting
that?
there conversing with the Man in the Pallid Mask, and all of a sudden, like...
But he wasn't conversing with him, he was slinging spells at him.
It's like...
How do you converse with people?
Just about to get that information you need from the man, and then this Corpse Dweller just pops through the cave wall like the Kool-Aid Man and just eats him.
Oh.
Yeah, so I had to go on Discord and check, like, wait, is that how it's supposed to go? But yeah, that is valid until it is errated otherwise, so...
I don't know,
that's how it plays.
I feel like it's a cool moment.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do
not an enjoyable moment, just a really cool moment.
Yeah.
It's one of those really organic things that you have to wonder, like, was it designed for that, or was that something that just happened? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's really cool that that's a thing.
So, calling out specific cards, obviously we're all enamored of Corpse Dweller, at least the
Oh.
design of it, if not the enemy itself. It's
Yeah.
so nasty.
It's such a cool mechanic, yeah.
And Nick, I know you have it listed first here, and I would have listed it first as well. The Treachery, the Shadow Behind it.
Oh,
God, I love the design of
Yes,
that card.
yeah.
Just for the art, like the art is so good.
That was one of those. That was one piece of art that kind of led me to believe like that we have an investigator who has a ghost companion because without context, that dude, he could be a friendly ghost.
It doesn't look friendly. I don't think
Well,
so.
He's putting on a mean face to scare.
It looks a lot different. It looks a lot different than the ghost that was in Stand Together.
When Casper went bad, now he has claws.
I just love the action. Look behind you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's the thing about this card, and so often what I feel like takes this game to another level is like this could have just been action to discard the card, right?
Yeah.
To
In
get
Lord
rid
of the
it.
Rings,
But
yeah.
but it's not. It's you look behind you, like just that extra dose of flavor, like does so much. I feel like.
Yep. And it. Okay. I'm 31 years old. I'm a grown ass man. I'll have moments in my own living room when I'm walking upstairs in the dark where I'm just like, no, there's nothing behind me. No, we're all right. We're all right. And it's just so funny to see that translated so well in card form.
Yeah, that's another reason why I love the scenarios. I think the treacheries like Shadow Behind You and Corpse Dweller are so flavorful. Even the pit below, like that art with the pit opening up, and
oh my god, that's really good art.
If you stay there, then it's gonna deal damage to you. So yeah, it's awesome.
I honestly think that Shadow Behind You is probably one of my favorite treacheries in Arkham. Like from a theme, from art, like everything about it.
Agreed.
All right, so
I'll also give
go
a
ahead.
quick shout out to the Catacombs Docent who was mentioned before, because that's another cool, like, he's an enemy, but you can also pump him for some information.
and he's not dealing damage to you. Like he's not physically attacking you the way some enemies might. Like he's just telling you shit that's disturbing and dealing horror. Like I love the idea that enemies aren't always just trying to punch you in the face.
I didn't even like
Sometimes they're trying to punch you in the brain.
with Pallid Mask. I didn't even interpret it as like him speaking. I always pictured him as just standing there silently, and it's just his presence is enough to, you know what I mean? Like that's the vibe from Curtain Call and onward. That's the vibe that I always got from that character.
Yeah, I could see that. But I love, and I'm pretty sure that this was the primary intent for Corpse Dweller, but I love the idea of you meeting this old dude. He's telling you some weird shit, then all of a sudden, like,
Yeah.
and he's after you.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Total horror movie moment. Okay, so just general play strategies. Do you guys feel like there's any specific tips that helps one get through this scenario?
Bring your yellow cards. Mobility and
That's
clues.
every scenario.
But this one especially, like, because you need the clues to to progress through the map, and then just being able to move on a dime and being able to move outside of just spending an action is so useful. So it seems like cards like Shortcut and even Working on a Hunch like are ones that are extra valuable in this scenario.
I feel like for the most part, you want to reveal rooms as quickly as you can, keeping track of how many are left in the deck. Because, like I mentioned, when you get down to those last 5, you kind of want them clumped up as best you can. Because if you take the route out via the blocked passage, you want that nearby the Tomb of Shadows. So I think that's one of the main things where if like you're trying to metagame this, when you get down there, stick close.
I feel like I haven't been very intentional about the way I construct the map, as we've talked about, and so like I mentioned with my skids, I was going down a hall with not a lot of branching paths, and that can come back to bite you. So I think thinking a bit about how, like you said, I think it's probably the best strategy is to create a hallway so that when the Spectre of Death, which we haven't even talked about, that's kind of the big thing we should talk about, which is the pulls a masked hunter. It's the back of the first act and hunts you, so you're kind of on a time race at the beginning to get as much done as you can before that appears. But once you get towards, the bottom 5 has what you need, then you should, as much as possible, try to create a little clump of locations there. How has your guys' experience been with the Spectre, by the way, as the big enemy?
I've yet to kill it.
I was going to say, I've been lucky enough to avoid it every single time. Like, my maps have been long enough, and I've been close enough to finishing by the time it shows up that I've been able to avoid it.
I feel like this scenario already deals out so much damage with grasping hands and some of the other enemies. You're already on your heels with horror, because Carcosa. I still have never had the gumption, and I haven't played through with Agnes yet, so maybe we'll get there, but I haven't had the gumption to go try to take on a 2 damage, 2 horror enemy with Retaliate that also punishes you for trying to evade it. Like, it's got all its bases covered.
So I guess I have a more extensive history with the Spectre of Death than you guys, though, because I have 2 stories. One is with Mark with a shotgun. You'll appreciate this story, Nick.
Yeah!
Which is, I took down the Spectre of Death in 2 hits with shotgun and a vicious blow. So I dealt 11 damage to him in 2 shots. Got the max damage
the dream.
plus vicious blow. It was so amazing. Just blew him to pieces. Because Mark is the best shotgun wielder. He's just amazing at it. So that was good. And then the other one was one of those moments where I had to decide between getting out of dodge. This was with my Jenny and Akachi 2-handed campaign, to just run for the exit or hunt for that VP. And so, as often is the case, I decided to gamble. And so I went in there with Jenny and her twin 45s, which is dicey because it has Retaliate. But it wasn't completely crazy because I had a pocket elusive. So basically I could absorb 1 Retaliate, and then if it went badly, then I would elusive out. But I managed to pass on 3 straight tests and blew it away. I had some other damage. No, it wasn't 3 straight because that has 10 health. I think it was like 5. Yeah, it was actually some crazy 5 straight tests actually, without failing any of them. And managed, and some of them were just like
I'm Ian,
plus
the
1
chaos
up.
bag loves me.
So blew it away, and that was it. And then, as is often the case with those 2, I elusived with Jenny and astral traveled with Akachi to get to the end before time ran out.
Yeah, and I feel I've played this 3-player and 2-player. Maybe solo, 5 health becomes more surmountable, but just the fact that you've got to endure the Spectre for a couple turns while you whittle away at it, if you don't have some big bombastic way to take care of it in 2 shots.
One of the games that I played was my solo Roland deck, and by the time it popped up, when I read it, I honestly wasn't that scared. Because I was like, oh, okay, if it gets to me, fine. But then it never got to me because I was so close to finishing up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ideally, I think that's the one case where I intentionally went after it, because most of the time I'm just trying to get away, but sometimes it catches. Oh, I also killed it with Skids because he has the 45, so Retaliate is nothing.
Nice. I have a feeling that, just based on my board state for this game I have playing right now, it's gonna come to a head, because there's no way I'm getting all 4 of these clues off a 6 shroud location with my current hands. So chances are someone's gonna have to go in there and deal with the Spectre. But it's okay. Jim's got his level 5 shriveling in his hand. We've got purple shotgun going in there.
I think in multiplayer that's a case too, where evade is a perfectly viable option. If it gets to you, someone just locks it down with evade, and the other person just tries to finish the scenario.
But honestly, I think if you go into it, and I kind of like how this plays out, because if you go into it really clue heavy, chances are your strategy for dealing with the second act is to get the clues and advance via clues. As long as you've created enough space and moved quickly enough, chances are you can finish the scenario before the Spectre of Death gets to you. Versus if you are slower because you have trouble with clues, chances are then you're better at combat. So it's kind of a cool balancer that way.
Yeah, if you're not good at clues or combat, why are you even playing the game? Seriously.
Looking at you, Skids.
No, he's good at combat. He's got the Guardian cards.
So someone keeps telling me.
Yeah. He did quite well in this scenario, thank you.
I mean, everyone understands at this point all the ragging on Skids is like 90% joke, right?
Yeah. It's like if you get a certain nickname or joke about you in school, it's never going away. No matter if the reality changes.
I was about to say, like, even before I realized, like, oh, I just have a hard time playing an investigator with 2 frickin' willpower. Like, his nickname is Skids, yo. Like, all right.
I'd say the other big hint is just don't feel like you have to gather every clue at a location, right. Because you just need, if you're solo, you just need 1 to reveal the next, or per investigator, basically. I'd say take advantage of the low shroud ones. When you run across a 1 or a 2, gather all those up, and then you can, just skip past the 3 or 4 ones, or just gather 1 there or whatever.
And I would even, like, there are those locations that you can make a test to try and reveal an unrevealed catacombs location. I've ignored those until like I'm down to 3 unrevealed locations and I'm just looking for the block passage. Like, then maybe I'll try to, depending on how far ahead I am. But ultimately, those tests are just there. Just maybe they feel more like a red herring. They don't feel like they're that necessary.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually used it.
Yeah, I've used it once, I think, because it was one of those ones where I'm running out of time and need to find the best exit. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't make it out on your own accord, you get a random Madness or Pact.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that was actually
a whole lot else.
That was actually really cool, because the only time I failed is with solo Roland, and I actually like the defeat resolution, because you find the king and the yellow on your nightstand and have to read it, which is why you get the extra weakness.
But you get 2 additional experience.
Yep.
And then I suppose it bears mentioning that if you advance via clues, you get a couple of extra tally marks for chasing the stranger, which is pretty cool. We assume. I guess we don't know ultimately what the last scenario is going to do with chasing the stranger, but before it was good, right? Shit, did we forget to talk about what that did before? Is that in Oath? Or is it? Yeah, where it first.
I think it's
No, it's in the intro of Phantom of Truth. It's in the dream sequence.
Yeah, it's in the dream sequence.
So we did neglect to mention it, but
which I have not gotten yet, because I haven't gotten above 3 tally marks. But
I'm about 50-50.
Yeah, a lot of times he just doesn't show up.
Yeah, I always try to put him. When I can, I try to make the lead investigator in Curtain Call, whichever investigator I expect to be drawing more cards throughout the campaign, just so we can take more cracks at him.
Yeah, that's smart.
All right, so any other words on the Pallid Mask? I too think this is probably one of my favorites in the campaign, just because of how interesting it is in its variability, I guess.
Yeah, I just always look forward to playing this one.
All right, well, look forward to next time. Well, we actually probably won't do it on the next episode, but the next time we revisit this, wow, words. We're going to be finishing out the Carcosa campaign. Can you believe we're already almost done?
I can't.
Just crazy. Okay, so then let's move it on. So we've got a couple of hotline items to catch up on here. One's probably going to garner more discussion than the other, so we'll do the short one first. And I learned my lesson last time, so I'm not going to try to play this to you guys. So listeners, enjoy Nathan asking about playmats.
Hey, Mythos Busters, let's try round 2, since apparently with my first message I didn't know how to talk. So since I'm a sucker for playmats, and with Narrow Escape being the final card, with artwork matching official playmats, what would be your choice of artwork from current cards for new playmats? As for me, I'm going with Masked Horrors from Return to the Night of the Zealot. That on the table would be beautiful. Thanks.
Shadow behind you.
As a playmat, you like that one?
The one I generally go for more of the like scenery shots or scenery art more so than like specific event art for playmat, simply because I like it to. I don't want it to be something that I want to like look at as like a person's face or something. I want it to be more like evoking an ambiance. So
Right. Yep. I'm with you there.
Yeah, I know that you can get this playmat, but I also know that it's from an artist in Europe, so it costs like $60 to get. But the Arkham art on the front of the rules reference is my dream playmat art. Like, that would be the best, I think, in my opinion.
Oh, is that the one where it's like kind of a slightly aerial view of Arkham from like over the Miskatonic?
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's the river. It's
Yeah,
at
that
night,
was
so
cool.
all the lights are on. It's beautiful. I love it. And that would be my number one choice for playmat.
Yeah, so I'll hop on your general sentiment there. Although my art is much newer. So I was playing through Black Star's Rise the other day, and no spoilers for it here. It's just the art, but the treachery card World's Merge has some of the coolest Carcosa art, and it's super cool in the context of that scenario too. But I frickin' love that art. And I would take that on a playmat in a second.
Yeah, that one is amazing. Amazing art. For me, this might be a little bit of a dark horse pick. It's not dark horse, but Twin Suns from Phantom of Truth. I also like the kind of more subtle, subdued art compared to something that's very out there. But I think that would make a good playmat for me. I'm a sucker for kind of horizon, sun, star scenes.
Yeah, and I was even thinking about that, like with like the agenda art from Phantom of Truth, how it has the Eiffel Tower and the red moon and the white moon, and any of that
really
kind
cool.
of stuff that's really evocative of a sense of place, I think is the best stuff to get.
All right. Excellent. So we're burning right through these here. This next one probably is a little bit more. God, this one could probably warrant its own discussion topic, but we'll try to keep it to like 5 minutes here. So, oops, there we go. Here is Josh talking about the current Arkham release model.
Hello all, my name is Josh Jenks. I'm calling from Greenville, South Carolina. My question for you guys was, what do you think about the release cycle of the game? Talking as someone who only plays one campaign through as the game is released month by month, I kind of forget what happened in the previous scenario after having to wait a whole month. I feel like the game would be better served if they had divided the 6 adventure packs up into either 2 blocks, releasing 3 chapter packs at one time, and then another 3 at the end, so that when people bought the game, they had a bunch to play at one time. Now, I say this only because it's frustrating to me to have to get a pack, then play it, then wait a whole other month to get the next one. And if I just want to wait till the end of the whole cycle, I have to stay off of all social media, and I can't listen to podcasts like this one because I'll hear all the spoilers. So I was just curious what you guys thought if they re-implemented the release method for the adventure pack so that they release them all as one whole campaign or in 2 big chunks of 3 and 3. Thanks for taking the time to listen.
I think that we can all agree that the single greatest downfall to Arkham is its release schedule. Yes?
I mean, it's definitely something I've been saying since turn 1.
Even like as we were wrapping up Dunwich, I remember really like realizing it, like this release cycle does not lend itself to a game like Arkham, and it kind of sucks that they're forced to adapt to that, because I really like, and I've said this before too, I like what he said about having 2 big boxes. I think is the best way to go, where like your first one has all the player cards and like the first 3 scenarios, and then your second one has the remaining 5 scenarios. Like, to me, that would be the best, because then you're getting all the tools in one box to build your current decks, and you're getting the first part of that campaign. But honestly, I'm not a fan of the month-to-month release, and even though they come right to my door, even though I have the subscription service and it's super easy, it still is not the way that I want to play the game or the way that I want to consume it.
I'm kind of torn about this. On the one hand, I feel similarly in that I have trouble sometimes remembering exactly what happened in my previous plays in that particular campaign, especially because I have, however many campaigns going on at once. And so it's hard to remember it's not even so much the gameplay parts, because I have all those noted down, but it's more like the narrative break that happens after each release that it's hard to, you're kind of building up a story with your investigator and all these memories you have, and then it becomes hard later on when you're on whatever pack and you're trying to remember what happened last time. I have taken Sean's suggestion of putting kind of narrative notes in my campaign log now, which has helped a lot. So I have kind of these...
I wish I would do that. I've stopped.
I have these running notes going. The only thing I do like about the existing way of doing things is maybe one, just because I'm used to it, but two, it's also kind of a way to spread out my hits in the drug sense of the term across the course of the year, because if I got everything at once, then I wouldn't have anything to look forward to for another however many months, 6 months or whatever, 8 months.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but at the same time, like, I guess I'm okay with that, personally. Like, I'm okay being like, sweet, now I've got 5 months to where I don't have to worry about anything new for Arkham. I like feeling like I'm caught up, you know what I mean? Because honestly, with Carcosa, I've just felt behind. I'm sure listeners have noticed it as well, where just a scenario will come out and I'm like, I haven't even played the one before it yet, you know what I mean? Whereas with Dunwich, it was a little different. I was playing them pretty much as they came out, but it's been harder to find the time to sit down and play. And even when, like, my wife and I sit down to play games, we don't always want to play Arkham. Like, we don't get to play all the time, and sometimes it's like, well, maybe let's break out Pandemic Legacy again, or maybe let's do... So I kind of wish that it was easier to feel caught up. And that's, that's a personal feeling. Like, I don't need to play the scenarios as they come out and everything like that, but it would be nicer for me if we had, like, one box with all the scenarios in it, or something like that.
Yeah, oh, sorry, hang on a sec. PS3 came on.
Jeez, oh, okay. I was going to say, you can't even focus on the podcast. You got to power up your PlayStation.
So, I am just so super torn on this one. As a player, I think I would prefer the two box style, like first half campaign, second half campaign, with player cards in both, because I do also kind of, I side with Ian on... I kind of like new player cards to excite me halfway through the campaign. Mm-hmm. As a content producer for the game, it bums me out that, people who take it more casually than we do, which is probably just about everyone, can't listen to some of our stuff because they're behind and, are trying to respect spoilers, and, that's obviously no one's fault, but it's still just kind of like, aw, darn. I do think that the campaign structure of the game would lend itself better to bigger burst releases. I'm fully bought in, so, if they wanted to sell me $100 campaign, I would probably buy it. Yeah, I don't know.
It's just
tough. It depends so much on where you're sitting and how much you play.
Well, so much of this release model dictates, like, so much logistically, like, it has to be X amount of cards in a Mythos pack. It can't be more or less. They have to come out a month apart. There's gonna be 6 Mythos packs between each big box. So
it makes so many decisions for them.
Right, which really sucks when you have a game that its first and foremost selling point is the narrative exploration, because suddenly, and I get it, like, limitations breed creative, like, you explore new things when you have limitations. I understand that, but at the same time, it feels like these limitations are almost a hindrance to what you could do with the campaign. And I think we really felt that with Dunwich, and how, like, with, what was I already forget the scenario. Was it Where Doom Awaits was the one where it ended the penultimate scenario? And I know there was that big discussion about, like, well, suddenly I know that I'm done with this campaign and yet there's another scenario coming up. Do I just ignore the being done? Do I start a whole new campaign? Like, that sort of ballsy, admirable choice as a designer would have less of a negative impact, I think, if it came in a box with the next scenario and the ones previous or whatever. So I feel like I honestly, I get the whole I want stuff to look forward to, but I honestly think that having a big release, one big box release, would only better the game itself, personally.
Yeah, I mean, and totally, I agree for everyone who's like completely bought in. I think price point is something they're concerned about.
Sure,
it's really nice to be able to say like, hey, these little packs are only $15, guys. That's not much. That's like a quarter of the cost of your regular board game. And I think another piece is, my problem is I just see both arguments so clearly.
That's exactly where I'm at, that I'm kind of torn, because I like the idea that I could just get the box, just play through campaigns, just experiment with all these different campaigns. And then on the other hand, I do like the episodic, like almost like following a TV show or something, where you have that little bit of anticipation waiting for the next pack. I think from FFG's side of it, probably the reason they don't do it is, one, what you mentioned, Sean, about the price point, that they're not going to want to put out like however much that would cost. It's easier to just drip sell. And then also, it's probably better to continually have the Arkham name and presence, because you're releasing a pack every month versus like you release this and then you go dead for like 6 or 8 months or whatever, and then it doesn't keep staying in front of the board game consumer.
Yeah, it keeps it in the zeitgeist a little bit more clearly. And I also think in the age of on-demand entertainment, like, I do really miss the idea that we could buy a campaign in this case, and play it through at our own speed and have resolution when we want it, you know? It's tough. But hey, at the end of the day, this is the model they've chosen. I think something along the lines of the Return to the Night of the Zealot pack might be kind of a proof of concept of kind of more self-contained expansion campaigns. So hopefully that sells really well and might open the door to more experimentation with the actual format of release.
Yeah, that has single-handedly like reignited my excitement for this game, because not to say that I'm not, because I do love this game obviously, and I do get excited about the releases, but the fact that it's like, okay, not only are we revisiting old content, which I've always harped on about and saying that's a gold mine for them, but we're also going to just drop it all at once, at least in the case of Night of the Zealot. Now, Dunwich might be 2 boxes because it's a longer thing, but I'm so looking forward to Return.
I also wouldn't mind if they would do like quick 3 scenario mini boxes or whatever, like a mini campaign. They don't always have to be 8. Like, I wouldn't mind having a couple of smaller ones along the way.
Oh yeah,
you can always toss side scenarios in there.
I would love if we got a cycle that was just standalones. I would love that. Like, if they're not narratively connected, if it's just like, imagine a cycle of Rougarous. Wouldn't that be cool?
Werewolves all the way
horrifying.
down.
Just a pyramid of Rougarous. Oh, all right. So I think that exhausts where we want to go with that topic. So Ian, you've got a thing I'm excited for.
I do have a thing. I don't know how excited you should be for it, but it is a thing. I have the latest 5-star review. Thank you so much, Brady, for submitting that and choosing me out to do an impression reading this review as Matthew McConaughey, True Detective's own Matthew McConaughey. All right. Let me see if I can do this. You see, this show right here, it's all you need, brother. I'm talking about Arkham, Massachusetts. There ain't nothing right, and you're going to need some guides, all right? All right. Strap into your Lincoln, plug your phone in, and let these boys get all up in your brain housing. Y'all won't regret getting ballsy with their busters. Am I right?
I mean, the review itself is pretty goddamn amazing.
It is.
Thanks, Brady. I loved that. All right. So, guys, let's move it on to a little bit of high and tight tentacle time. We're actually doing better on time than I expected, but if we can keep tentacle time to like 10 minutes, we can keep this under 2.5 hours. So let's go one item apiece this week.
Okay.
Ian, what you got?
Super quick, I recently got Doctor Who Time of the Daleks, which is a board game from Gale Force 9, who also do Firefly and a few other games. It's a pretty cool game. It's a semi-co-op for 2 to 4, and the best I can explain it is it's kind of like a Doctor Who Elder Sign. Rolling dice, trying to match the icons you need. There's different colored dice, so like green is the running one, blue is the idea science one, red is the fighty one. And so you get different dice from different abilities, you travel to different locations, and it's fun. I like it because at first I was kind of not against it, but I was wary because it's so abstract. It is definitely more of an abstract game, but I feel like a lot of the flavor comes through, and I almost feel like you have to go abstract with Doctor Who, since you can go anywhere in space and time. Like the only other way you could do it is like a scenario-based game. But this way you travel to different places in time and meet these challenges by rolling dice, much like Elder Sign. So I had fun with it. I think it's probably the best or one of the better Doctor Who games out there, because there haven't been many good ones. The only bad parts about it, I would say, is it is semi-co-op, but I think a lot of players would want to approach it as a co-op game. Because, you know, it's Doctor Who and you want to take out the Daleks, who are basically each player plays a different version of the Doctor, and you are trying to stop the Daleks from taking over, but there's also one winner, whatever Doctor makes it to Gallifrey first. So I think a lot of players would want it to be co-op, and I think I also would as well, and they might be tempted to play it that way. The issue is, I think if you play it true co-op, full co-op, then it's too easy. Because basically the mechanic of the game, there's a Dalek ship that moves forward on a track, there's your TARDIS that moves forward, and so for example, if you were playing full co-op, one player could just complete this challenge that basically moves the Dalek ship one space back, and so it would never move. And then the other player could do their thing and win the game. So the part of the challenge comes from trying to race against the other players, and there's also a few effects that can like move them back a space or whatever. So I think it is a game that's really open for house rules, though. Usually I'm not a house rule person, but I think there's some easy ways to up the difficulty if you do want to play it true co-op or solo or something.
Sounds fun. Yeah, I've been wanting a really good Doctor Who game, but like you said, like I just none of the pitches of any of the ones I've seen have grabbed me. So that's good to know there's one that's at least passable. It sounds like.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun playing with other people who enjoy the Who.
If you chose this one thing for Tentacle Time, it's that means something.
Yep.
Nick, how about you?
I threw Overwatch on there because I realized I didn't have a Tentacle Time thing planned, and that's what I've been playing.
You?
I know, right? Oh, no, forget Overwatch. Young Frankenstein has really been eating up my time lately. So I am in, it's my, I was going through my community theater history the other day, and just reminding myself of shows I've done in the past. This is my 10th show, and it's my first musical. And I got cast as Frederick Frankenstein. So that would have been Gene Wilder. Yep, Frankenstein. That would have been Gene Wilder in the film version. I got cast as that character for Young Frankenstein the musical at our Brainerd Community Theater.
The titular character, even.
Yeah. So really exciting, really intense rehearsals. Like we did, just vocal rehearsals for a month, and now we're doing vocal and choreography for the next couple weeks. And then we'll actually start getting into like the script part of it, like just learning lines and blocking and a regular play part. So it's really been eating up a lot of my evenings, sadly, which means means less time, around the house with the kids, less time, like, playing games online, like I have done in the past and stuff like that, and less time for Arkham, obviously. But it is a pretty intense experience, and it's one that I think I might be jumping. I probably am jumping the gun here, but I think that by the time this finishes up, I'll, one, be very glad that I did it, but two, never want to do a musical again. Just because the amount of work you have to put in on the front end is so much more. It's literally 3 times the work of what you do for a normal production. So,
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
But I am really excited for it to get to show. And so if any of you listeners are in central Minnesota, last weekend of April, first weekend of May, come see it. Brainerd Community Theater.
Nice.
I'll be going at some point.
Yeah, yes you will.
You need to convince them to do put on a musical version of The Witch House Rocks. I will fly all the way out there just to audition for the part of Brown Jenkins.
Sweet.
Speaking of intense experiences, my tentacle for the week is I actually had the opportunity to try out Twilight Imperium,
Oh, wow.
4th edition. Matt actually invited me, and we played with a couple. Got to play with the dev for 4th edition, so that was
Wow.
Awesome.
surprise, he won. But yeah, it was a fun game. The mechanics themselves weren't nearly as intense as I expected them to be. Nick, it's nothing worse than Warcraft as far as the mechanics go. It's just way more. It's just a long form version of that.
I'm sorry, do you mean StarCraft?
Oh yeah, sorry, StarCraft, not
Okay.
Warcraft.
I was sitting here, I'm like, what Warcraft board game have we played?
No, the StarCraft one that we've played many
Sure,
times,
sure.
and I always forget how to play in between times. But anyway, yeah, it was a good time. We played, I think, probably close to 9 hours. We played the shortest amount of turns that you can, and we ended up actually calling it on the penultimate turn just because people had to get going. But
Wow.
yeah, it was a good time. I would do it again. Probably won't do it often because I have attention span issues for games that I know really well and know I love. But I was glad I did it. So yeah, good time. If you have a shot at it, I would say go for it. It was fun.
Twilight Imperium is one that I've always wanted to play simply for just the cover art of the box. I remember looking at 3rd edition and just being like, what is this? This looks amazing. And then I actually...
Space Lions, motherfucker.
Yeah, and then I saw it on the table and I was like, this looks so amazing! And I still haven't played it.
Yeah,
but
I feel like it's one you have to try at least once. I want to try it at least once.
Yep, and now I can say I have, so we'll see how it goes next time I get the invite. If I get the invite. Basically, I was my strategy the entire time was just like my strategy in every real-time strategy game I've ever played. Non-confrontational, build up as much as I can, make alliances, and then hopefully when fighting finally comes my way, I'll be so built up no one will want to do it.
Never works out that way.
Which worked for a while, except fucking dice. There are dice in that game.
Ah, yes.
And where dice are involved, oh boy, if there's a way to misuse an extreme tactical advantage, I'll find a way.
Well, Sean, what if instead of dice they used a bag with random tokens?
I'm better on the chaos bag, but I still find a way. Anyway, Twilight Imperium. It was fun. So, you know what? It's been a while since I've done the spiel, so for the 3 of you who made it to this far in the episode, if you'd like to hear someone do a wacky impression on the show, all you have to do is leave a 5-star iTunes review and let us know which host you'd like to read your review in what voice. If you have any comments, if you have a discussion topic you'd like us to tackle, please call the Mythos Busters hotline at 203-493-MYTH. That's 203-493-6984. We got no hits on the topic of the week, so I don't know if I'm going to continue to do that. Maybe it's just a bad topic. We'll think about that for next time. And as well, of course... Oh, yeah! Big one. We've started the Miskatonic AV Club back up. We have 3 new episodes incoming. Yay! So, if that's something you haven't heard of yet, because it's been a long time since we've talked about it, that's our separate card review only podcast that we started doing on YouTube, and we also have on its own separate RSS audio only feed, so you can find that at the Miskatonic AV Club, wherever you prefer to consume such content. And yeah, I think I'm out. Like us on Facebook and YouTube and shit. All the normal stuff that we gotta hawk. Okay, guys, that wraps it up for episode 34 of Mythos Busters. I think we'll see y'all next time.